Well, greetings, everyone. It's Monday, and it's Midnight's Edge in the morning. That, at least, is the name of the show. I know for many of you, it's evening and middle of the night and everything else, depending on where you are. Joining me today is Script Doctor. How's it going?
It's going great this afternoon for me. How's everyone doing here today?
I'm doing excellent. Cultured Casino, who also joins. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. This has been a good morning for me so far. This is what's really cool about this. We are spread around the globe, so time is a weird thing, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, and we're so glad to have both of you here. My colleague Tom, he is still in the land of the sleeping, and I can't blame him, because as he was finishing up Doomcock's stream, which would have been this morning his time more or less, because those to run for a while, I was telling him, yeah, I have a new script here. I'm gonna need it before the morning show, so you're not getting your beauty sleep for a while yet. So hopefully he'll be joining us before long here. But because of his absence, we were able to get a video up on the Eternals performance and the media excusing it, apart from Deadline Hollywood, who removed all excuses, which was fun to see. So yeah, we'll dig into all of that. We'll be talking some Eternals, of course, because now we have the opening weekend numbers, which I see people discuss and challenge in any way possible. Wow. We have some other news to discuss later, such as a possible Rambo TV series. Big fan of Rambo here. And also, on Disney Plus, more Marvel movies may be released in IMAX format. Is this something we should celebrate, or perhaps not so much? We'll get into all of that. Sailor Sonic wonders what happened to the voice guy. Well, you mean the new one? He's awaiting his next script, which I'll have for him in the next few days here. And Rambam 3000 says Rambo TV series awesome if done right. That's a question, though, and we'll see what we can find out about that. And we also have many other awesome people joining us here. We have Donny Canup, we have Will Bloom, Mr. Dragon is here, Jakob Romanski is here, Anthony Cruz is here. Jason Gray, my countryman, is here, says, I just got through watching the Drinkers review. Yeah, that was a great review of the Eternals. I'm sure most of you may have seen that already. Lindsay, the Cynical Geek, is here. Greetings. Spider Unlimited is here, and he says for $4.99, good afternoon. Daylight Savings. Was 15 minutes of the Eternals runtime the credits alone? And yeah, that's pretty standard, isn't it, script, for 15 minutes runtime?
Well, I mean, 50 minutes is a little much, but the credits are usually quite a bit. Between 5 and 10 is your average, depending on the budget of the film and how many thousands of people are working on it overall, which it's a lot these days, especially on your tentpole films over at Marvel and Disney.
Yeah, I think some of their biggest films I think are 12 minutes or so. I mean, I think that was the Endgame credits, and Civil War and stuff had 10 and 12 minute credits. So yeah.
Well, that's also factoring in the post credit scenes that are dispersed between the two of them as well. Yeah.
Those 2-minute blasts. Yeah.
And also, speaking of daylight savings time, are you happy that we are finally on the correct time, which is winter time?
Yes, and it should be like this all year round.
Thank you. I could not agree with you more. I mean, let's just end this bullcrap. It's so annoying. You know what's so annoying with this for me in particular? Because time doesn't change at the same time. So I learned this 1 year ago, when suddenly Tom was texting me, where the hell are you? I'm like, chill, do we have an hour? No, the show is right now, daylight savings time. That's when I learned that daylight savings time is not the same time in the Norway and the US. So that's frustrating.
No, it used to be about 10, 15 years ago that the sync was almost global. at the time, and then for some reason in North America they pushed it back a week, which annoyed me. I mean, aside from the fact that we had to do it anyways.
Yeah, I never really understood daylight savings time. I've lived in places where you had it. I've lived in places where you don't, and I have to tell you, it doesn't make sense to change the clock. And here's the thing: the biggest problem we've had is with the financial markets when you have different time changes globally, because the markets open at different times. It's right. You get really screwed up if you pay attention to any of that stuff. But there's a lot of weirdness there. So anyway, it is what it is. But I would be in favor of freezing. Just let's stay here and never
just ending it. I mean, we are no longer, for the most part, living in a farmer society where there was some kind of benefit to that. And even then, I think you could perfectly well do without. So yeah. And then also continue to greeting the audience. We have Erik Ronge Madsen here representing Denmark. Karis is here. James Foran is here. Natasha, Head Wrench is here, so everyone behave, which of course you always do anyway. Dark Winter is here, Maestro Chi is here, and Will Bloom is here representing Stockholm. So yeah, awesome. And everyone, if you could all do us a favor, smash that like and help share the stream, then that would be most helpful. With the algorithm. Also helpful are super chats, and Spider Unlimited says Joan Rambo, First Blood, a period drama. Oh my god.
Wow.
That's
kudos. Kudos, man. I hadn't even considered that one. Yeah, that's a nice one. Darius Münchhausen sent us a $1.49 super sticker, so thanks so much for that. And then before we start railing on the Eternals here, just going to go through the others we can bring up. The Waltman 4 says for $4.99, my dad got an email from the biggest truck union in the US debating about a month-long walkout in December over the mandates.
That's some good leverage there.
I mean, yeah, that's some very good leverage. Going to be a good Christmas this year.
Or a very slow one, I mean, depending on how the corporations respond to that. But yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see. An Infinite Wanderer says, according to Doomcock's stream last night, I think daylight savings comes from World War I, where the Germans wanted more time in the factories. Yeah, I'm not so sure it was specifically that,
It was definitely about oil and conserving oil during fighting. I remember that part of it because, I mean, oddly enough it is, there would not be as much trench war fighting in the night as there is during the day. But as it did get darker, they would end up having to use lamp oil to light up things so they could see their enemy. And I think there's some details with regards to they decided to agree to turning the clocks back an hour to preserve oil on both sides of the war, or at least I don't know if it was the First World War or a war before that, but I do know that daylight saving time was to preserve oil primarily because farmers only care about when the sun is up. They don't care what time the sun is up, that it's up, because that's when they wake up.
Exactly. Of course, I think the same could have been achieved by just like realizing that the sun rises and sets at different times throughout the year, but hey ho, I guess that was too difficult. And then going back to some classics here, who will be on Toxic Femininity later tonight? Says for $4.99, hi gents, hello everyone. And then we have, let's see, Deleted Teens, who says, hail Andre, Script, Culture, Wrenches, and Chat. A Rambo television series. I can't see it working present day. Hope I'll be proven wrong. Yeah, well, we shall see when we get so far. Yeah. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then we have Jillian, who sends for $9.99. I think it should be daylight savings time all year around. Here on the east coast of the US, it gets dark around 4 p.m. now. Regardless, let's end the spring forward. Fall back nonsense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, dark around 4 p.m. You should try Norway. See how that works out.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, no, because here in Oslo, we're south of the polar circles. We're not at the point where we have like 30 days of night in winter and 30 days of day in summer with like the midnight sun. But what we have is like it never gets like fully bright at daytime in winter any day, because the sun never rises completely in the sky. It's actually really frustrating to drive because it rises to the height where it shines right in your eyes as you're driving, and then it sets again. You know this in Canada. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I do. Because yeah, like we start seeing the darkness, at least in my area, right around the 4 p.m. mark at this time of year. And yeah, if you're driving eastbound in the morning, you are blind. Unless there's like you're in a dense city where you're saved the direct sunlight. Yeah.
And Mike in Ayers, he found a good usage for the Eternals, saying hospice workers need to just show Eternals to dying patients instead of administering morphine over the course of days.
Wow.
So yeah, harsh review there. Stephen Yarnell says, can't wait to hear your thoughts on the eternal snooze fest of the woke mind. Well, that's another good title right there. And Michael Storm says, never compromise even in the face of Armageddon. And yeah, some people certainly will not do that in their thoughts on the Eternals. Yeah, let's get into that. Let's get into the first topic, which is the Eternals, because now we have some actual box office numbers. We've had the reviews, we've had the Rotten Tomatoes score, we've had the critics amazingly not liking it, which is something of a surprise, given that it kind of like ticks all the boxes that you'd expect a well-liked movie to tick, but still didn't help. They didn't take to it, and now we have the box office numbers. And let's be clear, though, for most movies, opening to 71 million domestically, which is what the Eternals did. It had a 71 million domestic opening. That's pretty decent numbers, and not something to scoff at unless you are Marvel Studios. In that particular case, I would say that 71 million is something to scoff at, especially when you consider that the early estimates for how it was going to open ranged from 75 million at the very low end to upwards of 100 million in the high end. Those were the estimates, and the estimates are what the industry thinks is going to happen. That's where they kind of like set their expectation. And also the studio's going to have like some internal projections for what they consider a success and what have you not. But anyway, when the movie is then thought to possibly open from 75 to 100 million and it falls short of all of that and it opens at 71, there is no way to spin that other than that it is a disappointment. Now, before we get like the industry point of view from script culture, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this opening weekend?
Disappointing for Disney, Marvel. Just very like you know, it's not crippling, of course, and and again, I'm not gonna hyperbolically overreact to it, but it is definitely well below what they expected. And you're not wrong. I mean, some of those early forecasts got as high as 112 million, which it was going to do like this wicked amount of box office on its opening weekend domestically. And we still are, you're still seeing the domestic box office represented quite, as very important, because this film isn't going to release in China. It's not going to release in Russia. It's not going to release in a lot of markets in the Middle East. So 24 major international markets that it released in were almost in sync with the United States, which means this is the biggest this film's going to be, and then it's going to scale back. And I think that's the reaction that I've had from the very beginning. This thing, if I still am skeptical, I think this film probably, because we're still dealing with estimated totals, I think this made about 69.5 million. I think that the early Variety projection was probably closer to what the what the actual numbers could be, but they'll be revised one way or the other in the next couple of days, and we'll know for sure. But for now, 71 million, I'll accept it, but it's disappointing for Disney. And it again, I mean, it didn't even get anywhere close to what their internal expectations were, nor what anybody that's a true industry professional expected. And we're seeing the some of these things are showing up in the bottom line that we've been talking about for a while, affecting audience interest in this. For a change, though, I have to say it was kind of refreshing to see the critics mimic some of our conversations that we've had here, because that doesn't happen very often. So
only goes to show just how ahead of the game we really are when we are having conversations, and of course we are criticized massively for them, and then years later, like, okay, ignore those people completely. However, we need to talk about this. Exact same things we spoke about years ago. So yeah, better late than never, I guess. Yeah. But script.
Yes.
First of all, what do you feel about this, and what do you think is the response within the industry?
Well, I'll have to say, first and foremost, props for Marvel Studios for at least trying to swing for the fences with doing the Eternals. Just taking a risk, really, with these characters. I mean, you don't ever get that type of aspect with Marvel. I don't think the execution was very good. I don't think the people they brought involved for the production was a smart choice. I also think that they didn't do a very good job setting up the most important thing when it comes to any type of movie is the need for an audience to want to see it. They just failed to do that in the marketing, and based on the reviews, they failed to do that in the story as well. Yeah. I mean, it's the first Marvel movie I can think of where the majority of people I know in town and outside of the industry just did not feel like they had to see this movie, that they felt like they could skip it and not miss a beat for the rest of the MCU story that's currently being developed in this phase 4. And that's a really, really bad aspect of this. And what else can I say is that the critics and the audience kind of, affirmed that perspective that, you haven't made us care about the Eternals. So why should we go see it? I mean, the two previous films that have debuted, Black Widow and Shang-Chi, did nothing to set up anything for the Eternals at all. So,
well, maybe the 10 Rings.
Maybe, but that's like kind of.
That's a maybe. I mean, that's something that we have to read into it. It's not something that's that they brought up in the movie at any point. Also, I have to say that I agree with you that, like, kudos to Marvel for taking a risk on the Eternals. Like, my frustration isn't with them doing the Eternals in the first place. On the contrary, after having researched the source material a little bit more, I said kudos. Absolutely, do the Eternals. But why the hell did they have to mess it up this bad? They paired it with the wrong filmmaker. I mean, they did it, but they didn't do it right. They'd have been better off not doing it than this completely hopeless direction that they took.
And one of the things that kind of was a staple of Marvel back when it's in its inception with the films was that they were going to set up the potential for another story, whether the movie was successful or not. Because with Iron Man, they had no idea it was going to be a big hit in comparison overall. But they just decided to do that little tag of introducing Nick Fury and talking about the Avengers Initiative. And then, as they did Thor, and then they bridged Thor with Captain America, they bridged Thor with the Infinity Stone. And then Captain America also with the Infinity Stone, the Tesseract and everything. And they just slowly started building it all together to say that, yes, there's going to be a potential. And then you had that really big, awesome point at the end of Avengers where you had Thanos turn his head and smile, and you're like, okay, we're building onto something here. And that was kind of like the formula. It's like you watch a Marvel movie to get that story. That story builds in addition to what we already saw. And then we get that little end tease of, okay, this is the like a little nudge of the direction we're headed to. But after Endgame, we haven't really seen anything that does it in the same type of manner that would compel an audience to want to invest in this franchise any further. You kind of just had an actual cutoff point with Endgame now. Like Spider-Man Far From Home was the first movie afterwards. I don't remember the post-credit scene all that well. I think it was like Nick Fury in a simulation of Hawaii or something.
No, it was actually really lame. The post-credit scene was that Nick Fury, who we had seen in the movie, wasn't Nick Fury at all. It was like those reptilian shifters with the Kree or the Skrull. Yeah. It was the Skrull all along, which I thought was freaking ridiculous. But yeah,
and then that you give us that, but like, okay, is if you're trying to set up Sword, that's cool. Could we have like an image of that or something? And then we get all this stuff going on to the Disney Plus side of things, which they feel not as strong on the connective tissue with regards to the actual MCU up until that point. And with Eternals, they just did not weave. They did not, in the advertising at least, because I haven't seen Eternals. I can't see it yet. It's theaters only. They have not woven in the necessary requirement to bring an audience into the Eternals. And I had the same argument and criticism for Shang-Chi, is that they didn't set up this character for us to want to watch. He's completely isolated. And then Black Widow, of course, obvious one, about 8 years too late of a film.
But I will say, though, that I actually enjoyed Black Widow, apart from like the changes done to the Taskmaster. It was really obvious that it was like a last-minute decision after having filmed it that let's make it a woman. Because it very obviously wasn't part of it as they were filming it. But there
are definitely some issues here. But I would say
there's no connective tissue. Yeah, you're right. Certainly not that we have seen yet.
And that's the other part too. That's the kind of like the fascination that I learned in college when it comes to stories, is that the audiences really love the idea of connecting things. There's a reason the game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon is popular amongst cinephiles. It's just like cast members that work through other cast members through various projects or something. Or when you have a cameo of one character from a completely different series that's got the same producers, like showing up on another series. Like you had, for instance, a popular one that unfortunately did not succeed as well would be the X-Files with the Lone Gunman. Like that was kind of huge when the Lone Gunman got their spinoff as a result of that. People like that. You also have like the classic Batman and the Green Hornet like crossover, and people dig those types of things. They like knowing that one fan base has a connection to another fan base and that it can bring people together. And Marvel was really smart doing that under Paramount's auspices with the first 3 films,
right?
And then also with Universal's The Hulk. But once Disney got a hold of it, and then their power started to get stronger and stronger as each movie progressed, we seem to be losing that connectivity to be more superficial as opposed to fun.
Yeah, and that's the other problem, is the rewatchability on this film. And I think overall, I think this we haven't gotten into it yet, but I don't think this film is going to have the kind of legs that they need, because there isn't a lot of positive word of mouth out there.
And there's no rewatchability. Like, I think I'm the only one on the panel who's actually seen it.
Yeah.
And I have no need to rewatch it like ever again.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a greater need to rewatch, say,
Dune.
Obviously, that goes without saying. But I was about to say, I have like a greater need to rewatch Captain Marvel, because that at least had the Stan Lee intro sequence. Of course, then I can switch the movie off after that, but it at very least had that going for it. Whereas in this movie, there's literally nothing. There's nothing that demands rewatching. I mean, the landscapes are okay, but all this praise that the movie gets for the landscapes and the cinematography, I disagree. I thought it was really boring, plain, mundane. Given the locations, more could have been done with them. I mean, like the one cool shot of the movie is the Celestial who comes to Earth at the very end and fills up the sky and everything. And even in that shot, I'm like thinking, this has to really throw Earth out of its orbit, because the gravity of that. it's not going to be good for the solar system, least of all the orbit of Earth. So you just destroyed the planet. Congratulations.
Well, they've abandoned the science that goes along with a lot of this too. I mean, that's the other thing is you still have nerds. You still have, you know, the nerds that go to see these, right? The comic book nerds and geeks and every, you know, whatever terminology you want to use. And for those of us that, you know, like look at that and go, well, that's not realistic.
I have to say that that's actually destroyed Batman Begins for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like that's because when they have like this weapon that makes all the water explode that they drive through like town, that like instantly evaporates. I'm like, how is this weapon not dangerous to humans who are like what 90% water?
Between 75 and 90% water. Yeah, it's like how does it? Yeah, because I mean, no, the Batman Begins had a bunch of problems in that. That one there, it's like. Focus microwaves. It's like, are they directing it specifically to the pipes? And if so, can they convey that? That's one of my issues with Christopher Nolan. It's like he comes up with good ideas, but then he kind of forgets that he has to convey those effectively so that the logic is sound with them. And you kind of find those issues in a lot of his films.
I just hate it, like when movies are like, it's a movie, just go with it. You're like, yeah, I know you have to do that up to a certain point. But I can't, for instance, in this movie, then, when you have a massive celestial that looks to have the mass of the moon suddenly show up literally inside of Earth's atmosphere.
You have to be, the tides alone would be devastating.
Yeah, you'd have to have like some pretty lacking understanding of basic elemental Newtonian physics to not react with like, hang on a minute for a scene like that. Yeah, like I get that it's nice visual to put on screen, but at what cost? And that's what I found like was like so.
You have this great moment. You can do this great moment where you just do a cut to NASA and they're like, it's our instruments say there's nothing there, and it's like, but we're looking out the window and we see it, and it's like, but there's nothing there, and then you have that thing where it's like, oh, okay, so that's not why.
I would have sold it.
That's why the world's not going crazy, is because the celestial is able to do something that won't harm the planet, but still be able to have its presence.
Yeah. Well, of course, also Dark Winter wonders, can the Eternals have kids? Yeah, they can, and that really harms planets. Because planets are basically like eggs for Celestials to grow up in. And that's like the big spoiler of the movie. Earth is just an egg for the Celestial, and the Eternals, those that decide not to rebel against their creator, meaning everyone but, the villain whose name escapes me right now, they all decide that we have to go and we have to abort the Celestial before it's born. Of course, those terms aren't used, but that's what they're doing. That's kind of like what they're fighting for to achieve here, to end the life of the Celestial while it's still in utero.
Wow.
Oh, that's not going to be contentious at all.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't pick it up on that the first time I saw it, but I was like, wait a second, that's actually what they're doing. That's kind of like what they're debating. Like, well, they're like debating all the good that this Celestial can do for the universe, and I was like, oh, fuck it, it's inconvenient for us. So it has to go
from a sacrifice of Earth, yeah.
So yeah, what
a movie, right?
Yeah, what a movie! What a movie! The more you think about it, the worse it gets.
Yeah, I mean, and people wonder, I mean, why weren't you interested in going to see this? Why, you could review it on your channel. I'm like, I don't need to see it. I already know everything about it. I knew about it 2 years ago plus now. And I'm like, after that, I was like, I'm not interested in this. And then my disinterest grew. As time went on. That's not good.
That's not good when you have like YouTube pundits who decide that I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Who like make a conscious decision that I'm not going to see this.
Yeah, but that's happening everywhere, right, Andre?
I mean,
that's your observation, right?
Yeah. Like I have a hard time finding people to discuss the movie with who's actually seen it. Generally, shouldn't be a problem in our sphere of YouTube, but it is.
Well, that says a lot in and of itself. I mean, obviously, but I just wow. And here's the thing. I mean, the narrative around this right now that's being crafted that's the other thing, you know, obviously that we're going to discuss here today. I can't imagine somebody deciding that for Marvel, for Disney, for anything Disney nowadays, that this is going to be a success. I mean, much less profitability, which is part of the video I've put together for today, is, you know, is I don't see an enormous profit, if any at all, from this film, because I don't believe it's going to have any legs.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I don't think that movies that are released right now should be expected to have profit, because we're kind of like in unusual circumstances, in which the usual rules don't apply, by which I mean that this movie and all other blockbusters coming out now, they were greenlit and budgeted under the assumption that the world was still going to be as it was in 2019.
Right.
Meaning everyone could go to theaters around the world with no restrictions whatsoever. That was the assumption when it was budgeted and everything like that. But that's not the case. But I would put that firmly into the force majeure category.
Right.
Meaning an act of God, something that none of the studios really can help. And it's unfair of any movie that was greenlit for a different world to be released where we are right now and have like the same levels of profitability on them. So I don't expect the movie to perform relative to what it should have in a normal situation, but I do expect it to perform against others that are released in the same circumstance.
Right.
Like, for instance, if we compare this to Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi, as we were told that it was to be pronounced in the movie, or to Venom, Let There Be Carnage, or to Black Widow, that was even released day and date on Disney+.
Right.
I mean, I would put the bar on those. Can it beat those movies? In that case, it's a huge hit. If it didn't, then that's actually a big problem. And it didn't. It came in last of those four.
Yeah, fourth place. Yeah, and it did by a substantial margin, with even a day and date release, right, with Black Widow. I mean, and then you had Venom, out there with 90 million on its opening weekend. That's pretty good. You're 100% right. I mean, it is a different market now, but at the same time, I mean, we're going to have to break free of that at some point. And I thought that the acceleration towards that freedom, and so did many of the, professionals that, industry professionals that have been talking about it, they expected this to ramp back up after No Time to Die. So, we'll see. I mean, I think the true teller of tales will be Ghostbusters Afterlife and Spider-Man. I think those will be the ones that kind of give us a real perspective here because of their size.
Well, it's based on market share on the fandom, pretty much.
Yeah.
That too, but also, who knows what kind of restrictions will be in place on actual movie going? Like, will there be like new lockdowns in places? Will there be mandates that restrict the public? That we don't know yet. That's going to depend from place to place. I think that,
as you get closer to the election cycle, in particular countries, that might change whether or not they're locked down or not. It seems to be of benefit to lock people down during an election, but I don't want to dive too deeply into that. I just think we'll have to see. I think it was wise for Disney to push things back, to be honest with you, as far as some of these films, moving them back a few months. And in the case of Indiana Jones, maybe never making it, that would be good.
That would be very good.
But I just, I don't know. Like I said, time will tell. But I think the two bellwethers are going to be, or one of them will be the bellwether. It'll either be Ghostbusters Afterlife or
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Script, what say you?
I'm in a bit of an agreement there, but I do know that, at least in my province and where I am in Canada, that theater patronage has gone down a little bit because of such mandates, which are now implemented fully here. And even one of my friendly associates who runs one of the bigger theater chains in the GTA was telling me things of that nature. That it's not ideal, the fact that they have to turn away customers. And that's probably going to factor in a little bit well, I would say noticeably to the studios. Probably not as great as we fear it's going to be, but definitely it's going to do a dent. So I'm really hoping Ghostbusters Afterlife does well. I really wish I would be able to see it when it comes out in theaters, but I ethically I will not divulge personal information just to go watch a movie.
Yeah.
And I hope it does well, and I hope it signals to everyone else that we can still tell good stories and make good movies as long as we focus on what's required to tell a good story and make a good movie, and then we'll see what happens with Canada. Oh, sorry, not with Canada, with Spider-Man. Sorry, I was reading the chat at the same time.
Yeah, I still think we have 3 more years of this with films that are just completely disconnected from an audience.
Give them production turnaround. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, at least, and that's assuming that that they're getting in tune with the audience right now, which I think is heavy assumption. I think that it's going to be some time before they're in tune with the audience again. I mean, like budgeted for the situation. Oh, yeah, that happens right now. That's like 2-3 years before we get movies budgeted for the current situation.
But a bigger problem here in the States is that they're going to try to bail this bologna sausage out again for the second time. They're trying to resurrect the freaking Hollywood Act thing that gave them, money.
Carte blanche, really, to go.
Yeah.
Your taxpayers' money, how that work, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's irritating. I'm like, I'm not bailing out Hollywood. I didn't want to do it the first time, and I really don't want to do it the second time. And if that's where you're going to put my money, you're going to get some backlash from me as a constituent. Because I'm just it's unacceptable, right?
Well, if they're giving our tax dollars to Hollywood, why can't we watch the movies for free?
Well, that's the other thing,
right? It's like that. I mean, that's the trade-off. It's literally a transaction, which is they make a movie, they put it out there. If it looks like it's something we want to see, we pay for it to see it, and if we like it, we'll watch it again and buy it on like home video or physical media or whatever. And that's the agreement. Why is a third party getting involved?
If we somehow manage to keep the whatever that act was called, and for whatever reason I'm spacing on it, but if we can't and they get another round of bailouts, it might be 5 years before we see a change. And that's frustrating to me because I'm like, look, you're losing money. There's not an audience for this. You're not going to magically create, an audience for this out of nowhere. People just won't. They'll just show that they'll spend time at their home. They'll watch, films that were made 10 years ago that are still good, or up until Captain Marvel, you could watch the Disney stuff with Marvel, and you can watch the real 6 Star Wars films, and you can, there's a lot there to get, right? There's a lot there to consume. So I think they've already turned away. You have 20% of the audience that may never return to theaters because they're scared. They've been scared. You have a decent percentage of the audience that is just turned off by all entertainment now. And I've said today, and I think I'm really going to consider adapting this idea that if you shove politics into a film so hard, or anything, television, sports, whatever, I'm done. I don't need you. I can stop consuming your goods. And believe me, that's it. The people.
Well, one thing that we should probably identify a bit for anyone that's just listening and doesn't know all the context is it's really party politics, because like good versus evil is politics, and we don't want people to be conflated with that. But we're talking about contemporary party politics, things that there shouldn't be issues in the entertainment, at least not delegated out in the way that they're doing. It really should just be like, hey, let's take a abstract situation that we could probably relate to today or to another generation, and see if we can tell a really interesting story with that, and just leave it up for the characters to be able to focus and not the issues at hand. That's the focus, because characters always need to come before everything else, because that's what we go to movies to see. That's why we watch shows. We gravitate towards the characters. And if you put party politics or a specific ideology ahead of all of that, you're not going to have a very entertaining story, because your characters are going to be missing the very aspect that's needed for us to want to keep watching them. And that's the personality. And that doesn't exist when you put all those other factors in ahead. So contemporary party politics does not need to be in any of your stories. But if you have an opinion of that, you owe it to yourself and to the people that will be buying your product to make sure that does not pose a detrimental aspect to what you're trying to do. Yeah, and we've got 6 years of them failing at that.
Yeah, and I
deliberately so.
I appreciate you reframing that script, because I did not do it well. So thank you.
No, I mean, because the thing is, like, you were saying the exact correct point. Is just that I don't want anyone thinking like, oh, we can never have anything politics, because first thing I learned in college in writing is that everybody has politics. Like, it's a point of opinion. It's about the issues at hand that are what's contentious with people.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that the issues don't dominate the story you're trying to tell, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And the problem is that when you politicize entertainment, you politicize everything, and then you're just going to turn off, I want to say half the audience, but I know that's incorrect. You massively, you actually turn away more than half, because my understanding is that in America, you basically have the populace split in three. You have those that are very hardcore one side. That's one third. You have another third that's very hardcore the other side. And then you have another third in the middle that's kind of like, yeah, I don't really care about anything, just leave me alone. That's two. You're going to go hardcore partisan. That's two of those thirds that you're going to be annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's actually, and it's actually even smaller than that, Andre. You have a very small percentage on the extreme polls in this country.
Oh, of course, because like when you shift all of the the goalposts. Yeah. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, I'm just saying is that I mean, you were right. I mean, you're turning off. You are exactly right about the thirds, but you have very small groups that are on the extreme polls, and right now, unfortunately, in this country, the extremes are the ones that are in control of the media, in control of the message, in control of the political machinations in this country, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's one of the things we struggle with here in the United States. There is a great line in Star Wars film. Only Sith think in terms of absolutes, and right now we have people who are only thinking in absolutes, and that's
also a very ironic line too. But yes,
yeah, there are some really good lines in Star Wars, and many places in fiction, indeed. But we have a backlog of super chats. So before we carry on, let's have a look at what you all have to say. And the next one was from Pilgrim Media, who said for $2, The Eternals is so bad I won't steal it. MKE. Yeah, there you go. You can't even download it. Night King 01 says for $4.99. How are they going to explain Thanos being an Eternal with a deviant syndrome? Because he's the Eternal's cousin. The deviants look trash. Yeah, they're probably going to change that. And Thomas Plummer says for $10, not having seen Eternals, I got the impression they were trying to copy how DC did JLA, throwing all the characters at you at once, then expecting you to care. Script. On that point, here we had 10 new characters introduced all at once. And at some point in the script, there were 12. What the hell were they thinking?
My question exactly is if you have a story where for some reason you're taking a point of view to have an ensemble of 10 or more characters, my first thing is to say this needs to be a series, not a feature, because you have to give the audience time to digest these characters so that they can actually be enjoyable. And when you're dealing with 10 characters that are essentially occupying the main character role, whether it's evenly or not, but just occupying a portion of it, it's really hard to balance out and convey to your audience what they all want, what they all need, and why we have this many characters. Based on like what I've read on the reviews, this seems like a story that can be told with really 3 people, like just one caught in the middle who has to make a decision, one that's against this one action and another that's for this other action. But yeah, like it's just very, it's just very perplexing. Of all the things that we've seen on Disney Plus, this would be the one topic, one franchise within Marvel that would be better suited for it. That's just my opinion. Like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier one, you could do that into a movie that's far better, more concise. WandaVision, totally do it into a movie far more concise. Loki, let's just forget that altogether completely for all.
I have to say, it's ironic. They've done this completely wrong. Everything they have on Disney Plus, to the extent of which it was justified to be made, should have been movies. Whereas the Eternals that they made a movie should have been a Disney Plus series.
Exactly, and it's basic arithmetic, because you look at it this way: you have so many, you have 2 hours ish for a film, especially a tentpole film. You have 10 characters. Well, how many minutes can you dedicate to each of those characters? And you're going to be getting less time of those characters because you have so many of them. So you have to do a focus. But on television, because it's like an ongoing, or at least on streaming service in this case, because of this ongoing factor, you can dedicate one episode to one main character focus and sparse out the other remaining 9 in each one. So they each have one episode to themselves. And that will allow your audience to actually understand who each character is, remember their names, which is very important. Because even when reading a script and you got 10 main characters, organizing them in your head and remembering those names is tricky. And that's usually kind of like a red flag for bad writing as well. But in this case, those types of things are ignored because these are studio-ordered, studio-commissioned films. It's like, we know we're doing a movie with 10 characters, so just make it work. But on that's my opinion. It's like Disney Plus, it would be better suited for something like the Eternals, where you have a large cast. I also have the same opinion for X-Men. X-Men would be great for a Disney Plus or a streaming series because it is a rather large cast of characters. That's just my opinion on the nature, and I think they really missed the ball here. I think, and I mentioned this with the start of WandaVision. It's like they feel like they're kind of going backwards. They're not able to. They have a TV formula for their films by making them each kind of like an episode or a chapter in a larger story. But when they actually do something that's on the small screen, they're breaking up a really simple story and stretching it out to be longer than it actually needs to be. And it's perplexing for me. I just don't get it.
Yeah, no. And what I think is so frustrating, again, is that I think, after having researched it some more, the Eternals actually could have been really, really cool, and it would be a great way to further expand the MCU had they done it properly. And doing it properly involves doing it on Disney Plus, but they just botched it.
Well, okay, you could have built it like script suggested there, and then had a movie cap it off, and at least then they would be introduced into our world that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that idea, but again, can we really count on them doing that? I mean, the chat brought up multiple times in various ways that there have been large ensemble films. We had better writers then. You know,
there are good writers today still. Script is right here.
Well, no, I'm saying that Hollywood's willing to employ. That's the problem. That's
the problem. Who's in the club and who gets like these huge gigs? Like, for instance, I don't want to single anyone out, but like Michael Waldron, who went from like writing that animated series I've never seen, I forget
Rick
the name
and Morty,
of it.
yeah,
that's the one, to doing Loki, completely messing it up, and he's the guy writing Doctor Strange at the Multiverse of Madness, which I'm significantly less excited about for that very reason.
I can tell you the story is how he got that job. He worked on Rick and Morty and was friends with Dan Harmon, and then he wrote a spec script that had Rick and Morty's type of humor about time travel, and this makes you understand a little bit more of why he got Loki. And I didn't find it to be that great of a script, but myself and Robert Meyer Burnett have both read it, and one of these days we're going to talk about that script. But because that script got a lot of buzz and it got some notoriety on what's called the Blacklist, which is used to be a community of the most popular unproduced screenplays circulating town. Now it's really just the ones that have the best representation to get on the prestigious list so that it can score an assignment gig. And that's what happened with Michael Waldron in this case. He wrote a script that a lot of people within that community were massaged to vote for, so to speak, by management and agencies. And as a result, it got him higher up on the tier, and that got some notice. Got noticed by the people over at Marvel, probably even Kevin Feige, and he was offered an assignment job. And I guess his pitch on what that would be was the best one out of the group that was selected. And now he's got Now he had Loki. Now he's got Doctor Strange, and he's got a couple of others in the works because of this type of relationship. But having read his work, he's good at prose. He's all right at comedy. He understands plot pretty well, but he's still, you can tell that he's still very green. He doesn't have good pacing or flow or understanding of the content that he wants. He also has a lot of lazy tactics of going for low-hanging fruit humor as opposed to something that's really kind of clever and inventive that makes you remember the joke later on.
I sincerely hope Sam Raimi is going to get him up to his A game, that Sam Raimi will have delivered some really heavy notes of like, I want this, and this, because that's just about the only hope that there is for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness on this point. Also, on that point, before we move on with the Super Chats, rumors of reshoots, and those are substantiated by the movie being pushed back.
Yes.
Not massively back, only a couple of months back. Basically, it took like the spot of the next Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And then everything was like shifted back one movie in the cycle because of that, which is like no drama to it. But that means that that there was like that they wouldn't be able to finish it on time for its initial release date. Have you heard anything about this script? Do you know anything about what the reshoots were about? Why they were needed?
Oh, I wish I did. I don't have anyone over there that I know in that production, at least not that have told me that they're in that production yet. I do know there was an accident on set, and someone lost their life, which was revealed last week. I suspect that they're doing that. They're going back to the script to see what they can do to sort of course correct and accommodate the fact that Harrison Ford has been encumbered for the last few months due to his injury. So I wish I had some more information for you, but unfortunately it's been quite silent at that moment. So we'll see what happens, but it's very, very curious to see that a full year delay. And for internal
that was Indiana Jones for Doctor Strange.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm completely. How did I?
No, it's
no. I meant Doctor Strange. Have you heard anything about Doctor Strange? The delay on that since?
No, I've not. That one, no, I've been following. Actually, sorry. The reason I probably got confused with that is because Indiana Jones is the one that's right on the tip for the whole year delay.
Yeah, it was announced at the same time because like all the Marvel movies, they were like pushed back like one movie, not 1 year, but one movie. So like for instance, instead of coming like in spring, Doctor Strange comes in summer, and the movie that was scheduled for summer is going to come in fall, and like vice versa. But then at the same time, there was Indiana Jones pushed back a whole year. Now we know a little bit more about that. But Doctor Strange, I mean, I've heard that there's reshoots on it, but do you know anything about what those reshoots were about?
Oh, no, I would assume that has to do with maybe better ideas that came in during the editing process. If it's Sam Raimi, because that's usually what it goes down to. And if you ever read one of the great Bruce Campbell books of Chins Could Kill, there's several chapters with regards to them shooting Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness and how those productions go about and the planning that Sam Raimi does, and then him having to sort of shoot from the hip during post-production and doing a little bit of reshoots here and there. And also Bruce Campbell trying to destroy the classic that Sam Raimi puts in all of his films, which is a car. I think it has to do with basically Sam Raimi probably saw something in editing that was missed and during production, and they decided to go back and do a pickup and a reshoot of this or that. Also, it might also have to do with however they decided to finish the editing with Spider-Man No Way Home. That was finished production before I think they started Doctor Strange, and I think that with the reshoots that they did on that film and the slow releases they're making with regards to the reveals, because now we know in Spider-Man Far From Home we're gonna have Sandman, Electro, Green Goblin, and Dr. Octopus. So yeah, I'm assuming whatever ended up happening with that story probably had an impact on Doctor Strange, and I would assume also some of the response to WandaVision probably had an impact on that for some reshoots as well.
Yes.
So that, and I can only go by on assumptions on that part at this point, because as far as I know, the production wise on Doctor Strange went really smooth with Sam Raimi involved.
Oh, cool. Let's hope for the best. Yeah, I do want that movie to be good.
And anything that I've heard is based on trying to change the tone, and especially surrounding Wanda. Just FYI, that was heavily what it was leaning on.
Yeah, of course, Wanda is going to be a problem for that movie. I mean, how could she not be, given that utter rubbish series?
Well, their treatment of her, especially at the end, really has fouled up. I mean, it's screwed her up, the character up, for a while. So anyway,
yeah, absolutely. Best they can do is actually ignore it happen, but that kind of like defeats the purpose of the Disney Plus series. And moving on from there, Neil said for $5, my mother even mentioned Eternals was getting bad reviews, and she's a normie. Marvel should take their L and learn from it. If not, they are done. Which is a good point. And the video that we made earlier today is actually about even Deadline Hollywood pointing out so very, very clearly this wasn't the marketplace, this wasn't the marketing. The movie is a problem here. And Marvel needs to see this as a wake-up call. Do you guys think that they will? Will Marvel learn anything from this?
Some people at Marvel will. I can assure you that. Like, again, I'm not going to imply that there's like a civil war at Marvel. There probably isn't. But I can assure you that some people who are working at Marvel who were really having high hopes for the Eternals and the track record for the previous films is probably seeing that, yeah, we're going to have to make some updates and or maybe get back on course to what we were prior. I can see that. I don't think it'll be Kevin Feige right away. I think that's going to take a little longer. But yeah, because again, they did just promote. I keep getting her name confused with Sarnoff. Alonso. Yeah, Victoria Alonso was promoted to a brand new position.
Yes,
that was made up for her.
Hopefully, she was promoted away from doing any more damage than she already has.
Part of me thinks it's not actually that, because usually you don't get promoted to an invented position.
Yes.
To do less damage. Sometimes you get promoted to an invented position to take over for the head honcho who has planned their sights set on something else.
Or somebody else has
has some stuff in there. Yeah, like it feels like job security when I looked at it this way, because Marvel has a really good infrastructure.
Yeah, you go over there and do this, and just be in charge of the people who are already doing a good job at that, and just like hang out, because we have plans, because things might change above you.
Yeah, and this is how to protect your job. But at the same time, Alonso is training her replacement as well to do all the things that she was doing, which means that they're they're expanding Marvel in some capacity. And I wish I could have more details as what's going on. But anytime you hear of a promotion to a position that nobody else filled prior because it didn't exist, that's usually a sign of expansion and that there's going to be a big change at the top.
They've shrunk some stuff recently over at Disney in various areas. Marvel is something they absolutely need to expand, because I think some of what they are thinking the disconnect is with some of the TV projects has been that there isn't enough people running the herd over there.
Yeah.
So, there you are. Yep.
Yeah. There you go. And then getting back on the super chats before we continue here, we have Matthew W, who says for $5, wasn't Ego the living planet a celestial? How was he going to see the Earth if there was another celestial inside the Earth? And my theory is that the people making this movie didn't think about that.
I guess.
What do you guys think?
I would say I guess they forgot to consult with James Gunn, who was the producer of the Marvel, like the cosmic aspect of Marvel.
At least he was supposed to be. And I submit that when Alan Horn fired James Gunn, that all ended. And so did the future of the MCU. Because I think that the plan for Phase 4 was to go all cosmic under the rule of James Gunn, and I think it would have been fantastic. I think we wouldn't even have missed Star Wars, but it all went to hell.
Yeah, that and paranormal. I mean, that was the direction they were going to go, cosmic and paranormal.
Yeah.
So yeah, and James Gunn would have been perfect for that. And that was the one misstep I can point to in Alan Horn's, management of things in the last several years. And it's a real shame to lose.
It was a knee-jerk reaction. It was.
It was,
and that knee-jerk reaction literally cost them the MCU, because I think that after Endgame, had they carried on as planned with James Gunn heading the cosmic side of the MCU, things would have been very, very bright for the MCU right now. I think that in that timeline, where James Gunn stayed with Marvel and he did all these cosmic things, Marvel would right now be the new Star Wars and Star Trek rolled into one.
Entirely possible, yeah, because he did something. Again, here's the other part too. So they gave him Guardians of the Galaxy as another risk, similar to how the Eternals was going, and Feige was trying to, I guess, repeat that formula with this director whose name is escaped me as well. Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao, yeah.
But the other part too that was also kind of interesting, and one of the things that's very that I find kind of different with James Gunn is that he is so hands-on with his projects that Marvel kind of doesn't do the same type of tactic that they've been doing with some of the other directors. They kind of pull out of obscurity. They, like James Gunn, storyboards the films himself and plans all the special effects and whatever's going to be composite CGI or what sets he builds and everything. He's got a lot of control of his individual films, which you can't really point to any of the other directors having that. And I'm really hoping, and I assume it's going to be the case with Sam Raimi, that he's got a lot of control over this, because he's kind of like a founding father of Marvel for film. Before the MCU studios existed, he was the guy that kind of got them sort of starting. And he's also got a relationship with Kevin Feige, so I think he's going to have a lot of carte blanche there as well. But for James Gunn, I would hope that if he wasn't terminated, he would have started building a great cosmic team to take over. And I mean, the rumor has, and I don't know if he'll ever confirm this or not, but the rumor had it that in Endgame, Adam Warlock would have been introduced and part of that. If it wasn't for him being terminated while they were shooting Infinity War.
They have false started Adam Warlock 3 times now.
Well, now he's cast, so he's at least going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 or something.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for this Craven project. There's a lot of things I'm waiting for in comic book movies, both at Marvel and DC. I feel like I've been set up to like wait on a lot of things that I needed the payoff for like a year ago. So I'm frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that derailed things more than any of us have any idea. I think that the Phase 4 we're seeing right now is a last-minute scramble to replace what we didn't get from James Gunn. It's my opinion. That's why I think Phase 4 is so unbelievably bad. But everything we're getting was supposed to be the side projects.
It's going to
only supporting the real deal.
Yeah, it's going to be screwed up. You're not wrong, Andre. And I mean, I've been leaning that direction for a bit, and the film I was truly looking forward to the most, and maybe I just speak for myself, but it was the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I thought, okay,
no, I agree with you. Of everything, the color dresser, that's most exciting.
Yeah, WandaVision was the thing I was like, this is going to be cool. This TV series is going to be amazing, right? We're going to get, Wanda to actually fully get to the point where she can express her powers and people will start to appreciate and understand what she's capable of doing. And then you'll end up in the Multiverse of Madness, and that will be, the beginning of this amazing cosmic and paranormal push that we have with all of the things, the companion to S.H.I.E.L.D., you got S.W.O.R.D., you got all these other things out there, right? And I was pumped, and then come to find out that this is not going to be the film I was anticipating, and that it doesn't necessarily have the best direction going forward. It has a great director, but the story around it could be a real issue. I'm very worried. Very worried. And again, if it fails, if Doctor Strange fails, a Phase 4 will be a complete loss.
Yeah, there's nothing else to look forward to. I mean, I would say that it's like Shang-Chi was mildly entertaining. mildly entertaining. I know some people really like that, and some people really enjoy the Eternals, and that's fine. Black Widow, I don't even consider a Phase 4 movie because it chronologically and spiritually everything belongs in Phase 2. Or like early Phase 3. No, actually, early Phase 3 is where it belongs. So, of like proper Phase 4, it's been a complete washout so far, you ask me.
Yeah.
It's had almost zero impact, really.
Yeah, it has like nothing's been built. There's nothing to be excited for.
Well, but look at it this way. We just wrapped up, we had like an interim film, right, with the Black Widow thing. So, that wasn't the launch of Phase 4. So that thing landed pretty softly. You had, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings that did okay. It wasn't the triumph that they had been advertising, and in my opinion, it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a good movie. It wasn't a bad movie. But it's not a movie I was going to ever. I don't know that I'll ever see it again. And then you have, and then now you bring out the Eternals. So on the Disney side of the ledger, I'm not seeing a lot of hope. And that's the other problem. The other thing that's been bothering me. Now I sound really cynical. I don't like that. Very pessimistic. But but I look at the Sony side of the ledger. I'm like, hey, that looks good. Hey, that looks good. Hey, Venom is like, after Venom, which just whooped the pants off of stuff. I was like, that's a pretty good film, right? I don't know. Anyway,
who would have thought that our hope would lie with Sony?
Yeah, well, that's messed up. But again, it comes down to Spider-Man, right? And that side of the equation, because Spider-Man's just like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman are the face of DC. Spider-Man was essentially for the longest time the face of Marvel. So I'm just if you bought the comics early on, it was Spider-Man's face. Anyway, I'm done. Anyway.
Oh no, you're right. And again, like X-Men may have started a little earlier, but Spider-Man really did dominate the market share of what Marvel did. In 2001, 2002, sorry, 2002 is when it came out.
Incredible.
And it's the movie that, Sam Raimi, give props to Bryan Singer for getting the X-Men people talking about X-Men again. And then, Blade just really doing a number and getting people into like a very obscure character at that time, and making him popular and like a household name again. But yeah, Spider-Man is those first three movies made a lot of money and were helped build the foundation to start Marvel Studios, and so that they could do what we had here. And now it's basically seems almost like they're using the character as a crutch at this point. Yeah. Because they know that Spider-Man Far From Home, with the two other actors confirmed being in there, is going to give them kind of like a much needed boost to sort of get their feet underneath them again for the long haul of what they're going to complete with Phase 4. And I think they're going to try and end Phase 4 with the Fantastic Four, which is I'm very terrified for. Me too. I'm not like terrified as in this actual fear, just terrified with regards to how we're going to get a third iteration of this. That's still going to be, an official third iteration, because the Roger Corman one was I would say pretty silly, but still very faithful and respectful.
Best one to date, and I worry that it's going to continue to be that. But speaking of new actors joining in, we are joined.
You guys are fucking boring. Oh my god, I had to come save y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all, you can't. Your dynamic don't work. It's just too boring.
Okay,
I'm gonna do it. And I couldn't listen to Culture Casino say Spider-Man like he's talking about Spider-Man in the plural.
Well, it's a good thing that you're here to show us the way then.
No, I just coming in to
There's much Spider-Man in the next Spider-Man.
That's part's true, but before that.
Well, I see it that way all the time.
I know you do it. I'm just picking on you.
I know.
But it is very dry in this room, and y'all needed me badly.
Well, I'm glad that
I
you're
have
here,
water. Then. I can splash it. Anyway.
My God. No, I'm just kidding. So what's going on, kids?
How was your nap?
Just in the middle of some super chats.
That's really all it fucking was a nap. I shit you not at this point.
I know.
Oh yeah, don't even remind me of the Fantastic Four. But let's carry on with the super chats, and before we carry on with our show here, Ranmori82 says for $5, didn't they do this plot much better in the Doctor Who Season 8 episode, Kill the Moon? Well, I wouldn't know because I've never seen a single episode of Doctor Who. How about you, gentlemen? Have any of you seen Doctor Who? And more specifically, have you seen the Season 8 episode, Kill the Moon?
No, that's Peter Capaldi. I got out of Doctor Who when my buddy showed me the pilot he was editing of that of Capaldi's introduction episode.
Oh, the Capaldi
I really hated the writing in that. I loved Peter Capaldi as an actor, but when I saw what ruined it for me is the "how dare you" speech, because I'm like, when people say "how dare you," it really means that you've caught them in a lie, and now they're trying to turn it around on you.
Shoot the moon.
And so I have not followed that one because I got out at Matt Smith was the last Doctor I watched.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's
from what I gather, that apparently was the place to exit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one I actually can't bring up on screen. I may have missed the later ones, but Dash Attack said the ethics of terminating a baby deity before it's born is something I think only the Russos could tackle.
Yeah.
Marvel is in over its head. Yeah, they completely messed up that part of the story. I mean, there could have been like a genuine moral dilemma there, but yeah, no, they blew it. There's no other way to put it. They blew that as they blew everything else in the movie.
Phrasing.
Yeah, I was like thinking that we needed like a phrasing right there.
A little blowing would have prevented the situation to begin with, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that was frustrating stuff. And let's see if I can bring up the next one too. That may be optimistic.
I got
Lady Ruscolin said for £10
Ooh.
was in the theater and the trailer for Ghostbusters was shown. Someone said loudly, and then they had that crap with the women. If it fails, it will be because of that movie, not the pandemic. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Oh yeah, I've talked about that before, but the latest trailer dropped today.
Yeah,
looks good.
Oh really? We have a new trailer?
Yeah. Wow. Out of the dozen I've sent you already, Andre, that you've ignored.
Yeah. I was like thinking, haven't they shown enough of the movie already?
Probably. Now they've shown a little too much.
Oh, fuck. I'm not seeing it then.
Too much. I don't know about a little too much, but basically the last 2 or 3 trailers we've gotten have been the ones that I've said that this is what they need to be, because there are enough of the new stuff, and then right at the very end of each one of the last few ones, we've gotten little teasers of the Ghostbusters. So it's like, okay, there's enough here that people realize they're back, right? Like that's what they need to show. Because my whole thing was after, like, I specifically showed my mom the new trailer, the first one that came out, like last year, whatever it was, or the year before now, Jesus Christ. And she's like, well, where's the girls? And that was my whole thing. I'm like, oh shit, not enough people are going to realize this is a new movie altogether, like not connected with that shit. But now they've done plenty, I think, at this point. So this new trailer is probably the best of the bunch, but it's a quicker one. It's only a minute or something like that.
Well, the most important thing is that people get exactly what's going on, and that they need not worry about the ladies. Also, on that note, Corey B sent a pie super sticker.
Pie.
Yeah, I'm sure we could all use some of that. And then, let's see, just trying to get caught up here. Rob Mack, this is a more recent one, says, everyone doesn't want to see 2 men lip-locked.
Fair enough.
Well, Angelina Jolie thinks you are a terrible person for that. She has nothing but disdain for you, as she expressed in public.
Well, it needs to be said, though, like, not everybody wants to see a man and woman together, and not, some people don't want to see whatever. It's, you just got to deal with it, but it depends on how it's done. That's my issue.
And that's how it was so well done before. I mean, think about it. You didn't need the overt intimacy between characters to convey a sense of romance and togetherness, right?
I don't care as long as it's done well and it's not forced. That's my whole thing. It doesn't matter if it's between a man and a woman, 2 women, 2 men, or an alien and a person. I don't give a shit.
It was handled pretty well in this movie, though. I mean, I have many complaints about this, but that actually ain't one. I mean, in terms of, like, if they're gonna be woke and they're gonna have that, they did handle that fairly well. I mean, obviously it was like forced, but it could have been worse. Could have been much worse. And Tina Bojan says, happy to be enjoying lunch with Midnight Edge. Oh, well, thank you. We're so glad to.
Did you bring enough for
join
everybody?
you for lunch date. Hope you brought enough for everyone.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm hungry.
Okay, so I broke my keto because my birthday was yesterday, and my mama made me.
Did that cost you?
What?
I know it's a fucking diet. I was kidding.
Yeah, no, my mama made me. My mama made me.
Mama?
My mama. She made me homemade chocolate chip cookies, so I had to break my keto. So, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Keto diet. Oh yeah, I see now. I was like, wondering what the hell is
I was being an
of course, ketolicious. Yeah, I see.
Warachi says, awesome panel discussion, boys. Let's hope things improve. Well, it's much better now that I'm here, so it will improve. But so far, all I am is bored by... Well, I know you're bored because I wasn't here. Oh, you mean Marvel and DC. I'm sorry.
That's a diva.
Love Dune. Hope Ghostbusters and Spidey are good. Yeah, we got a new poster like a day early than we were supposed to. I don't know if you guys talked about that at all.
No, not yet. We're getting to it.
The Spider-Man poster, but I happened to work it in our video this morning, which I hope dropped.
Oh yes, it's dropped.
Okay,
it's done fairly well and everything. And we explained.
If you wanted to hear me blow a gasket, I'll be like, "Why the fuck ain't that video up? It should have been up 6 hours ago."
Yeah, well, it was up. It was up. Let's
should have been up before I was done with it.
This is true, but it was up the earliest it reasonably could be expected.
I didn't want to refer to a video nobody's seen, but yeah, I managed to squeeze it in at the last minute in our new video because it dropped last night, even though the poster wasn't supposed to drop till today. But yeah.
And Gran Wasu 42 says for €5, greetings Andre, Script, Culture, and Tom. We need to have the boss man's voice. Smash the like, yes, smash it. Indeed, do that. And then we have Kaiju King Gabriel a little bit earlier who said for $5. It's due to politics that I'm planning on moving to Norway and start a family there. I want peace and quiet, somewhere to write my fantasy novel. Well, there's a lot of reasonably empty places in Norway, so if you want peace and quiet, depending on where you go, absolutely the place to do for it. And then we had Falkenstahl, who says for 10 Swiss franc, regarding politics, it's too polarizing what the US does. It's annoying to see that other countries pick this up like it's our problem now as well. No, it's not. Keep the stuff out of the movies. Yeah, indeed, but that's like the thing. The movies export culture to the rest of the world, and then you export like local problems that strictly should have remained local. Like, we didn't do this. We don't deserve the stuff that you're pushing upon us. Why do you do this to us? So yeah, I'm not blaming you in particular, but yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And then going down here, see what more we can bring up on screen if something was missing there. Revkor says, when MLP goes gay characters better, LOL, or does gay characters better. Yeah, well, there you go. And Daniel Brewer said for $5, I'd honestly like to see something like the Legion of Substitute Heroes done for a change of pace. Definitely done in a series. Yeah, there's so much that can be done. There's so much that can be done that would be hilarious and entertaining. It's just a matter of who are the people choosing it, choosing what to do, and what's their motivations. That, of course, we don't.
I think Monkey Jeebus is saying what everybody is thinking. Like, I'm not a good person either. I'll punch a baby, but Marvel is just despicable. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's Monkey Jeebus.
Baby probably deserved it.
Yeah.
And they're fucking terrible.
And Pilgrim Media says,
oops,
yeah, we'll do this one first then. Pilgrim Media says MCU Phase 4 is disjointed and reckless. Oh, hell yeah, it absolutely is.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And Basara549 says for $5, didn't the CGI Transformers a decade ago do the kill the alien god at the Earth's core 1,000 times better? I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if they did. Not in the slightest. I don't know that they did, but I trust you.
Sounds like something from there.
It does. I mean, we've been bringing up the Transformer similarities the whole time, haven't we?
The TV, not the movies, he says here.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. Like, like the
the CGI anime, whatever one it was. I remember the one you're talking about. Yeah, but
yeah. And then we had Stargate 404 who says for $10, sorry, off topic, but it looks like Dune may not be profitable at the box office. Will that affect the sequel? How much did HBO pay Warner, and how much of that will be considered as Dune profit? Is it based on views? Well, my take on this is that, remember what I said before about this is a completely different world right now, and many of the movies that were greenlit before the lockdowns, they were made assuming a normal situation. Well, the world changed around them. So many of those movies will never, ever see a profit, and you can't reasonably expect them to. So Dune, I don't think Dune is going to be profitable, but I also don't think it's going to affect the sequel prospects, because the sequel already has been officially announced, and we now even have like a date of starting.
Actually, I'd argue that it's just barely squeaking into the profit here soon.
Yeah.
Because it's made $330 worldwide, and according to Ann Sarnoff, it made It was $130 million to make.
Yep.
We know Warner dropped $100 on it to cover Legendary's costs.
Yep.
So, at this point, if people are considering Shang-Chi a fucking success and profitable, I don't see how you can't consider Dune at least somewhat profitable, considering it costs less than Shang-Chi.
Yeah, it's creeping in there. Chances are it'll get beyond the break-even point, but that wasn't the metric. I agree with Andre. They had to make a second film. They believe they believe in this film.
It did super well on HBO Max.
It did really well, you know. And as soon as I get all the real numbers from both sides of the equation, someday we'll talk about those. But we're looking at this film Dune being a real franchise. I mean, legitimately, they can go beyond this first film to part 2, and then beyond that, there's a lot there to mine. So this could be a big win for them long term. But of course, they have to play. This is all in Legendary. This is the thing most people don't understand. Right now, the people that control the IP, the license for the IP, is Legendary. So it was Legendary's decision to move forward with part 2. It wasn't Warner's decision outright. So just consider that for the moment. You know, and they don't, and again, that's the Wanda Group. The Wanda Group is in China, firmly an instrument of the Chinese government, as are all businesses in China. And they are not wanting to tell soft stories anymore. So you will not get a whole lot of the stuff that we don't like in some of these films.
Well, that's good, because sand is very coarse.
Yeah, we'll get a lot of other stuff we don't want, but not the kind of stuff that's been turning off audiences. So, but the sequel's coming, whether or not the film was profitable. So that's not anything beyond that.
I think
I think that they see the movie as sunk cost. They knew that this one wasn't going to make the money that they wanted it to, only because of the situation. But at the same time, they've already made the investment. They can see that, okay, we can't make money on this one. However, we have now laid the groundwork for massive profits later on. Yeah. So do we call it quits right now and realize the loss? Or do we proceed and create what can be a massively profitable franchise with time? That's what they did. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
Script?
No, I'm actually in agreement with that. Absolutely. I think they're looking at the long term, that this is not, I think they're willing to take a hit just so that they can create a very potentially profitable franchise. And I think they're confident in the sequel being able to solidify that. And I think we're going to get the sequel before we get the Bene Gesserit series. That's my theory. And I think that's what they're going to hopefully do, is they're going to drop the sequel, they're going to make an official announcement with a trailer of the Bene Gesserit series, and hopefully that will be the retention that they get on HBO Max for the Dune fandom as they explore the rest of the Dune series. And I really do hope they go into Children of Dune, and then the Emperor King and all that stuff.
God Emperor.
God Emperor, sorry, yes.
I have to ask again, since this isn't firmly in, as I mentioned, firmly in control of Legendary. Do you think the Bene Gesserit series will be good?
Who's going to be the new showrunner?
Not with the current, but I don't think that the current official showrunner is the real showrunner.
No,
neither do I.
And I can't. Yeah, and I haven't been able to find anything out because I think we.
Well, originally the writer was overseeing it. The guy who co-wrote
States,
Dune, States, yeah. And then now they announced some chick, and I can't remember who it was. And, I'm not so sure on that.
I think that she's not going to have very real power beyond actually being there and being kind of like a front. But I don't think that she's going to have like any real influence over the series per se. I think she won't be the real showrunner.
I don't think she'll be part of the production once you actually start doing it. I think she's just there as a placeholder, keeping things in development, keeping the engine going. And I think someone's going to come in and be the actual head, and she'll move on to another project, or she'll just be part of the staff.
As for if it can be good, anything can be good. It depends entirely on what they choose to do with it.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have liked to see like the War of the Machines series.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So that's where I think they really should have gone. But yeah, we'll see. With any luck, maybe they'll cancel the whole Sisterhood series and go with the Machine Crusade instead. But
I doubt it. Kung Fu Hot Dog sends in £5 and says, "Hail Fellowship, if Stan Lee were still around, the MCU wouldn't have become the poo bomb it is now. At least Zack Snyder took his heroes seriously." Well, let's be real. Stan Lee hasn't been a part of any decision-making in what, 20, 30, 40 years now almost?
At least 30 years. And
at least since the 90s, yeah.
He had exactly zero influence over the MCU when he was alive. Here's like the thing. Stan Lee, he created the comics, but he doesn't own the characters. The Marvel Corporation do. And towards the end of his life, they gave him like a payment of like $1 million every year or something like that, kind of like a symbolic fee and stuff like that. But he hasn't had any kind of influence over the movies in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. All he gets to do with the movies is that they call him in to do his cameo. And then he comes on set as a guest actor. They'll show him around. They'll show him some designs. So this is what we're doing. And hopefully you like it. And if you don't, tough luck.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I remember seeing an old interview with him way back when. He was talking about he always tried to get cameos in the older movies too, but they wouldn't let him in because nobody knew who he was then.
It's funny though. You know which movie has the first Stan Lee cameo?
I'm trying to remember which one now.
Mallrats?
No, that's not the Marvel movie.
Oh,
first Marvel movie would have
first Marvel movie. Yes, you got it.
Yes,
which
he
one?
wasn't in Iron Man.
He was in Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
That's right. Yeah, yes.
The one with Daredevil.
Yeah.
Was he in Iron Man? I can't remember now.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. He's in all the MCU movies.
Yeah.
But the very first, he's been in basically everything since Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But his very first cameo was
all the other ones before that. Yeah.
But he was the very first one was in Trial of the Incredible Hulk, which is the second direct-to-TV Hulk movie.
Which has finally gotten HD Master, as far as I know, because they re-released the Hulk series here in the U.S. finally. The only movie that's not in the set is the Return of the the Death of the Incredible Hulk, and I think that's because I think Fox Television owns part of the rights on that or some shit.
Is that on Amazon? Can I get that on Amazon?
Yeah, but I'd hold off because it just came out. There'll probably be a Black Friday deal within the next 2-3 months.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so now that one is in remastered because it's like frustrating. Because you have like the entire series in high definition, apart from the 3 direct-to-TV movies, which are only available in
if you have
VHS transfers.
If you have the what is it, network or somebody like that who put out the one that is overseas, because that's the one I have, Andre. If you have that same one, from my knowledge right now, a lot of those, they're not a lot of them, but some of those episodes are not in HD. Like they just upconverted them for that Blu-ray set.
Yeah.
No, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but I'm assuming now that they have re-scanned the movies, that this new set from Universal that just came out in the US is probably completely rescanned. So I will let you know when I find it on a cheap sale, because I'm not spending $80 on it since I just bought the foreign one like not even 2 years ago. I was like, you sons of bitches.
Plus, I have to go through my settings again so I can do the proper imports through Amazon, because right now, every time I try to buy off Amazon.com, it's like, we don't ship to Canada. It's like,
yeah, and getting anything in Canada or Mexico right now is like a pain in the ass, I guess, because like Nina's been dealing with a bunch of shit too. Yeah. So she can't even get her fucking t-shirts right now. It's been a big pain in the ass. So as
for the last sentence from Kung Fu Hot Dog,
sorry.
Does he actually take it seriously? I mean, I'm pretty sure he's serious about what he's doing. I don't know if he takes the characters seriously, because they don't represent any iteration.
Also, they're not his heroes. They're just like his interpretations of them. Whereas Stan Lee, he's like at the very least the co-creator of most, with alongside Jack Kirby and others, depending on
Steve Ditko.
But he has no oversight.
I'll concede this. Zack Snyder took him seriously, yes, but that doesn't mean he understood half the characters.
This is true.
Yeah. And it's not like I put that on his shoulders. That's more on the writer's shoulders in this case. But
Chris Terrio?
Yeah, between Chris Terrio and Goyer and those guys. Goyer is the one that always
irks me too.
Yeah. Anyway.
Let's look forward to Chris Goyer's
I just want to thank Nasara for the $2 he did to say TV and not the movies on the Transformer one before. But okay, go ahead with the one you had up there, Andre. Sorry, just didn't want to skip over that.
Yeah, no. Star Trek 404 or Stargate 404. Let's be clear about that. Had another off-topic question. How long do you think it'll be until Rust is released? Production has been halted. Will we ever see it? Its premise sounds interesting.
We won't
Culture,
see
you are nodding your head. Please elaborate. When will we see Rust?
This film is already dead in the water since this happened. It's going to it will descend into a form of production hell that it will never recover from. There are massive lawsuits on both sides of this. There have been calls for merit issues, across the industry, not just for obviously the armorer and the assistant director and their culpability.
Everybody's pointing fingers right now.
Yeah, exactly. But the producers themselves have been called on the table by people inside the industry as inexperienced and ineffective at many of the aspects of production. So this thing will never make it out in the world in its current iteration. The premise sure does sound very interesting.
20 years from now, maybe.
Yes.
Somebody else might pick it up, but no, this is a different situation than The Crow, because they had just started shooting this movie. Wasn't this the first fucking day of production?
I don't know about that.
I think it was within the first month.
I was going to say, it's been filming for it was at least halfway through filming.
Yeah,
but not enough. They don't have enough that they have a releasable movie.
And this is a bit different situation than The Crow. That was this has gotten much more dirtier and messier than I thought it ever could. Especially with a lot of the blame game going around. There's some people saying some outlandish shit within the production and so even the armorist. I'm to the point where I'm just like, I can't believe her lawyer hasn't told her to shut the fuck up.
Well, he might have, and she might have spoken out.
If I were her lawyer, I'd have quit that day. I'd been like, sorry, I can't do this shit, honey.
Well, I mean, you're in a weird place, man. I mean, this film can't recover from this, but you're not wrong, Tom. I mean, the minute the camera crew, the union camera folks were walking off the set, this thing was toast, and it should have stopped there, but it didn't, and there's the result.
No, I think this is just too far gone. But again, you never know. Somebody might pick it up in 10, 20 years from now. But at this point, I wouldn't expect to see it anytime soon. If it's based on a book, check out the book. I don't know if this is the next one, Andre. This is the next one I got, though.
The Whitfield Report says for $4.99, the MCU ended with Endgame for me personally. It was a great run, but now it's just a shallow cash cow and nothing else.
Some
And
people
that's a
say
shame.
it ended with
It
Infinity
should
War.
have been so much more. Yeah, that's my opinion. In my opinion, it ended with Infinity War.
Which it's hard to argue, even though I don't dislike Endgame. At this point, it's like, what's the fucking point? Like, they've really, like, if I was the Russos, I'd be more vocal and pissed than they actually already are. But, like, because their movie's just been shit all over on both ends. Then we had Stargate 404 with another super chat who says it was a toss up in how uncomfortable I was between fastest lip lock versus the forced awful sex scene next to a family with 2 kids in the theater. That's understandable. It is a PG-13 movie though, and people need to remember that stuff.
Yeah, it was well advertised, so the families should have known what they were doing.
I mean,
so yeah, that's honestly that's on them. That's on them. It was well advertised what was going to be in the movie.
Honestly, even before
we do have some older ones here as well, though. Nola Nerd says for $5, the writer of WandaVision had no idea who Mephisto is in the comics. She said she had no idea to an interview. Knowing this, all we got was a boner. Yeah, that's pretty much true. And Stargate 404 also said, I had to do a double take with the Celestials because Quill's father is a Celestial in Guardians 2. So it's strange that the aesthetic is so different. Yeah, but someone else said that he may be an elder of the universe and not a Celestial. That could be, that I don't know. I think that sounds right. He might not have been a Celestial, but really,
I can't believe I
don't think that the writers cared or noticed. Also, RevCore says that they have to decanonize Eternals. It breaks a lot. And in its current form, I agree. I mean, let it go the way of the Inhumans.
Yeah.
The last few of their films have been crap. But here's the other thing I think that, I mean, you've kind of hinted towards, Andre, and I'm sure Culture's talked about and whatnot, but like the last few Marvel movies, we're seeing the big decline, right? Like outside of Endgame, if you take that out of the equation and Spider-Man Far From Home, what other Marvel movies have made any money since then? They've all done like half of what we're used to seeing. And
yeah,
yes,
to be
part
fair,
of it is the
pandemic. It's a different world right now.
I get that. But you know what? This box office has been pretty normal for the last month or two. We've seen pretty normal numbers now. We're getting back to close to normal. This just ain't computing. Between Black Widow and now, like, nobody is interested. Even the normies are backing out. Now, I get it. This movie did very well this weekend, and I did check with some people, and they did say, oh, yeah, there was a lot of people in the theaters and stuff. So that part does check out for the most part. But there's still some shenanigans and fortifying going on that we've seen clearly. There was an individual, I can't remember the name offhand, but it's shared on my Twitter if you want to check it out. But he noticed that over the course of the weekend, there was 20 reviews that were held back until after, the movie had dropped so that the score wouldn't drop so low and a few other things like that. So is this really that successful? And, your video, I think, was the, exhibit A or whatever you want to call it, as far as, no, I don't think that the MCU is nearly the success it was, even in the current condition. I just don't think it's Spider-Man is going to be the barometer from here on out. If Spider-Man fails to hit $1 billion, I don't know what's going to be down the road for Marvel, because if movies like the Eternals can manage to still make $71 million at the box office, then we're pretty much back to normal. And I mean, with Venom making 90 million and stuff like that, that's normal. So
yeah, that's actually what I would expect it to do under normal circumstances.
That's what I mean.
But Culture, what say you?
I could yes, the Eternals needs to go away. I didn't expect this to be good. I've had that conversation around it many times. Decanonize, sure. I want to decanonize a whole lot of stuff, and for me, just like you guys, I think it may have ended for me around Civil War. Captain Marvel made me just want to tap out completely, and
that was right after Infinity War. So yeah, join me in saying Infinity War was the end.
Yeah, Infinity War, excuse me. Yeah, and I think that's probably just, again, Endgame was fine, but it broke a lot of crap, and then the Eternals breaks more crap, and the Loki series really broke crap, and I'm really tired of them breaking my toys. I seriously, the bully came over and started breaking all of our toys. We actually need to like acknowledge that. That's what's happening.
That's actually a pretty good.
Well, we were discussing this last night, and I think the biggest issue was that the blip, first and foremost. Like, if you're going to do this thing like Infinity War, and again, I know it would have changed who would have died at the end, but they should have stuck with it. Like, it's gotten to a point now where what we've seen afterwards, I can safely say, yeah, they should have just stuck with
undoing the blip was the problem, or undoing.
Or that's what I mean. Undoing the snap. That's what I mean. Yes, like if they'd have left it alone, like you cannot go back, or you cannot do a multiverse and time travel stories in the same thing. It doesn't work, right? Like, not in the sense that they set it up with Marvel. Like basically, it has to be like either Back to the Future rules or you have a multiverse. You can't do like what they're doing now, especially with introducing the multiverse, because now, as we've seen with Loki and a few other things, it just pretty much mucks up the entire timeline.
Well, that's kind of like what Loki showed, though, that it used to be Back to the Future rules, but now, because of the events of Loki, it's a multiverse, so they get to have their cake and eat it too.
It would have had a planetary collapse. I mean, that's the thing I never get around with the blip, is that you would have had a global scale collapse. I mean,
almost irrecoverable. Yeah.
I like that Endgame kind of tackled that paradox that you technically can't really do like Back to the Future in certain ways unless there is only one linear timeline, period. In which case, then it still doesn't matter, because it's all convoluted stuff anyway. So you can't go through all that stuff they did in Endgame. They made it way too complicated.
Yeah, if they stuck with a singular timeline, like where at the instant they go back, they have changed their own present and future, then you have consequences, in which case they can't screw up.
Yeah, because technically, if you go by their own rules in that movie,
they return to another universe. Yeah,
they just return to another timeline. Exactly. Yes, none of it makes any sense. So, but again, I know that wasn't the original question. As far as erasing the Eternals, it's not the first thing they've erased from the Marvel universe if it does end up happening.
They removed everything done by Marvel TV or Marvel Entertainment.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not technically canon.
Daredevil, Punisher,
Daredevil is up in the air at the moment. It all depends on how he's.
That's all one of the multiverses.
Yeah,
and Charlie Cox actually addressed some of this recently when he was speaking about the season 4 being canceled of his show, Netflix, and that whether or not he anticipated he'd be back in the Marvel universe at all in that character. So it doesn't sound good for.
There's a lot of rumors flying, but the rumor is that they're going to pick and choose some of the actors from those, but they're going to be completely different iterations
and recast some stuff too. Yeah, it's bad.
So they're bringing back pretty much all of the leads, with the exception of like Finn Jones. That guy ain't coming back. No one wants him. But
I'll be interested to see if they bring what's her face back as Jessica Jones as well.
Oh,
Kirsten Ritter.
Yeah, she was pretty good.
See, I didn't mind anybody other than Iron. Yeah, Iron Fist was the only one I didn't care for. So
I liked Mike Coulter a lot. I thought he was cool.
I just never got into it. Once I watched The Defenders, that's when I checked out from all of them. I never finished Daredevil. I never watched Punisher. I just those first couple episodes of Defenders, I'm like, what the fuck happened to this shit? Because I actually liked the first season of Jessica Jones and whatchamacallit, what's the other one?
Power Man. Who you're talking?
Luke Cage.
Luke Cage. Yeah,
Luke Cage. Yeah, Luke Cage.
Yeah, I was gonna say Nick Cage too. Luke Cage. I loved that show actually a lot more than I probably should have. And I know
Punisher was great in season 2 of Daredevil, but his series was not.
See, that's
his best was in the Daredevil. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I actually did love Luke Cage quite a bit more than I should have, but I think they got some of the more of the aesthetic a little bit more right there than they did. Like Jessica Jones was okay, but Jessica Jones just felt like if you did not know that was part of the Marvel universe, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because I actually had an ex that was watching it one time. I'm like, you do know this is an MCU show, right? And she's like, what? I had to like explain it all to her because she's like, she just didn't get it, and because she just thought it was a show, right? Like she didn't quite grasp it.
Understand the whole pantheon of things.
Well, yeah, it's just because there's really not much there, especially I think the first few episodes to really attach it to it if you don't really pay attention, and it's just like, yeah. Anyway, that one was okay, but I don't know. I don't know if they'll recast her or not either. If they'll even bring her in anymore. I mean, I don't know. She's not that popular of a character anyway, is she?
Well, I've heard that they're bringing back Kirsten Ritter as well.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
For her then.
The only
she
one
was to be in Apartment 23, so she's,
Yeah. And then before we have a piece of breaking news here, Dash Attack says, Scary Movie 4 had 2 men kissing on screen. How is Eternals progressive? What wall was actually broken? Well, none whatsoever.
And that actually, I was going to say something earlier too, and that was, I've never had a problem with, non-straight relationships on screen. Yeah. My only issue, even prior to all this woke shit, is just how was it handled, right? Like, that's my issue is always what it's been.
And here, it wasn't handled too bad, apart from the fact that they really forced events to get it on screen in the first place. But we do have a piece of breaking news here.
Yeah, we do.
We do. I'm going to bring it up on screen because I have it right here. Tom, if you can remove the super chats, then I shall bring up this on screen. Patty Jenkins' Star Wars movie Rogue Squadron delayed. This is an exclusive from the Hollywood.
Well, this explains why Mike didn't see it on the IMDb Pro last night.
Yeah.
Get rid of that damn trailer at the bottom of the screen. Oh, it's just...
It's very well may do. And then it says here, the first Star Wars feature since 2019's The Rise of Skywalker was to have gone into production next year. Was to in the past, never tense. And then the main story is Rogue Squadron, the Star Wars feature project due to be directed by Wonder Woman filmmaker Patty Jenkins, has been caught in the tractor beam. Star Trek, shame on you, Hollywood Reporter, and will take a little bit longer to make it to the big screen. Well, maybe they have one in Star Wars too. But
they do.
Yeah. Oh, well, there we go. Jenkins and writer Matthew Robinson and Lucasfilm have been developing Squadron for over a year, with the goal of starting production in 2022. It was to have started pre-production by the end of this year. However, in what sources say are scheduling issues on Jenkins' side, the producers and filmmaking team came to the realization that Jenkins' timetable and other commitments wouldn't mesh with the window needed to make the movie in 2022. Well, so she has something more important to do than Star Wars. That's good.
I think she was told to work on something else that's a bit more important than Star Wars.
Right, unless Wonder Woman 3 you might want to close out that trailer thing in the bottom.
Yeah, the trailer is
before we get a fucking copyright claim. It could be that Warner Brothers maybe pulled a contractual thing on her. And she can't. Otherwise, it's because of everything. Because I've noticed. Well, let's be real. Let's call it the elephant. There's a pattern here. Every fucking movie that Marvel and shit like that has been delayed now, pretty much. So, JPEG's either pushing everything back or something's happening that there's a big bunch of shaking up going on.
Well, I would say this, yes, because this is the Hollywood Reporter, and as Cameron Pasha has pointed out on the Friday streams, Hollywood Reporter is more on JPEG's side of things. On the business side of things, this seems like it's basically someone sat down with Patty and said, hey, I know you're doing Wonder Woman 3, and I know you're doing Cleopatra, and those are with some other studios. So, since we're trying to figure out what's going on here at Disney, why don't you take those as priority, and then we'll get back to you once stuff is sorted out on our end.
Yeah, the only other thing, though, is that Warner, of course, and they did this just before, or just as Wonder Woman 84 was coming out, they announced that they were fast-tracking Part 3, remember? But we all know that's usually just Hollywood BS for trying to boost the box office or whatever of the more recent release. But what if maybe they did really decide to fast-track this thing, and contractually they could have pulled it and said, no, you got to make this for us first. It all depends on how the contracts are written out. But
well, we're coming up to the one-year debut of Wonder Woman 84, right? So
yeah.
It's not wholly outside the realm
That's what
of
I mean,
possibility, but usually, the studios work together with this, and the director does get some say. I would be surprised if the powers that be at Warner were to be like, no, you have to do this Wonder Woman movie directly after the previous one, and you don't get to do anything else in between of these other
Well,
projects.
she's already doing
I'm sure you will do
Cleopatra in
that.
between, though. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. If Warner wanted to pull that, I think it all depends on what the contract says. You're right, but I'm more apt to believe that if they're telling the truth in this article and it has to do with contractual and time scheduling, that makes the most sense to me. Is that Warner wants her to go right into shooting Wonder Woman 3 as soon as Cleopatra's done, and they must have some contractual say over that.
Maybe
that could be as simple as that.
Blind.
Yeah. Go again. I'm
Could
sorry,
be
Script.
right, Script. Go ahead.
I think that's a duck blind because the thing is, she's been working on Rogue Squadron longer than Cleopatra
Yeah.
Yeah,
we know that.
Are you sure?
She's
Because I thought
invested-
she had I thought she was already working on the whole. We already knew about Cleopatra when they announced this, because that was the whole thing. We're like, when is
She'd
she
been
gonna
working
make
on this a year before the announcement of Rogue Squadron. She'd been working on Rogue Squadron a year before the announcement.
2019. Right. So, and this is her baby, because she's like putting a lot of her dad into this series. I mean, if you listen to her interviews and stuff, that's where she's taking inspiration from. So, there's some weird, this sounds like
this sounds like basically someone said Disney said, we want to work with you, Patty. But as you've noticed, we've had to push back some of our film dates. And since we haven't started rolling with Rogue Squadron yet, why don't you take this opportunity to work on your obligations with Warner Brothers?
Right.
And maybe they did say that there would be a spot open for her or not, but they said, and then when we get things situated here, because again, there's a very public changing of the guard at Disney right now. Iger is gone, and Chapek is asserting himself. And
contracts have been reduced from 3 to 1. And I mean, lots of things are going to change at Disney. It's a conversation I've been trying to have for a while. It's just, you're gonna see some positions change. I mean, Victoria Alonso didn't get moved, as Script had mentioned earlier, to a created position for no reason. That's a placeholder. She's sitting in a placeholder right now. You're going to see more of that. You're going to see it all on the Star Wars side. You'll see it with the Marvel side. The expansion of some other elements at Disney are coming because of the way they have to create their own content now. Again, all of these streaming services have come to the realization that they just jumped on a very, very expensive long-term investment that they somehow are going to have to continue to sell to shareholders. A lot of those streaming services are going to lose out. And Disney is one of the ones that have jumped forward on this, saying, we don't want to lose out on this. We have to, double down on creating more production space, the opportunity for more people to manage those productions, et cetera, et cetera. This is all part of bigger plans. They're doing the same thing at Warner too. Warner just took a bunch of space. Netflix has actually just bid on a Air Force base. Is it Air Force or Army? They just bid on a base in New Jersey for production studio space. They're really going to work on this stuff, guys. And yeah, and the difference between the Hollywood Reporter and the outlets like Deadline and Variety are that Penske Media Corp owns Deadline and Variety and some other trades. Hollywood Reporter's owned by a completely different entity. I think it's MRC. They're owned by MRC. So that actually means that what Cameron talks about is this information's coming from one side of the equation. Deadline and Variety, probably listening to producers and people at that level. This is probably right from Chapek. I think Script's right on the money there. So there you go.
Yeah, that's my interpretive speculation on this situation.
Yeah, it's very because what I'm saying is that it could be as simple as Tom says, that Warner just executed their contractual hold on her for Wonder Woman 3. However, I do find it very funny that this would happen right now, so shortly after the entirety of the MCU slate was pushed back, which of course is due to the reshoots on Doctor Strange. But then you also have like the 1 year delay on Indiana Jones.
Right.
That's one Lucasfilm movie in development, and this is the other the other Lucasfilm movie in development. There's 2 Lucasfilm movies. That's Indiana Jones.
Actually, I think
and the Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Is there another one?
Well, there's the one that Taika Waititi is supposed to be making.
Yeah, I don't think
the
that's
other
so
one
far
that Kevin
along.
Feige is producing.
Yeah, but all of those are like in development.
No, I got
right?
you. I got you.
But this is the one that's gearing up for
But
production.
I just looked a few things up, and basically supporting what you guys are saying more so is the only conflicts I would see would be between Cleopatra and Wonder Woman 3. Not anything unless she plans on casting Gal Gadot in or Gadot, however you say it, sorry, in the Star Wars movie, because she's both in Wonder Woman, obviously, and in Cleopatra.
Mhm.
So that's the only real conflicts I could see there, is you have the same actress. Like, outside of that, I mean, I think you guys are probably more on par with, like, it's just like, yeah, this thing is being pushed, but something's being done behind the scenes. Like, this is too many productions being delayed. Not any other studios are delaying all their productions, and if they are, it's probably more so out of fear of the IATSE strike coming.
Well, yeah, I mean, take a look at Warner Brothers' slate right now. They have not made any changes. And 2 of these films are going to be Warner Brothers.
Well, Cleopatra is actually with Sony, I believe.
Is it with Sony? Okay, my mistake.
I think so. That's what I'm saying. So, like, I think they're allowing, yeah, she's going to jump to, I think, Cleopatra next. And that's maybe why I think if, you know, my theory is correct, that Warner's just like, no, we want this movie done now. You ain't going to have time to do that other one first. You signed with us first. We're going to enact our contract or what have you, or just whatever. But I think you guys are probably more on par. There's too many Disney productions being delayed for this to be a coincidence.
And Warner, on the DC side of things, Warner has a slate of the Batman. They've got the J.J. Abrams Superman as well. They've got the Flash. They've got a lot of movies coming out that they don't need Wonder Woman 3 right away. They probably want to hold off on that a little bit to basically kind of button things up after the next few films that are going to be debuting. So she does have at least a year before she has to really get started on Wonder Woman 3. And I would assume that she takes that time for Cleopatra, and then I go straight to Wonder Woman, and then from there go to Rogue Squadron, because Disney has clearly lapsed on. They're definitely going to lapse on that scheduled booking for a Star Wars film for 2022. I don't think they're going to hit that slot.
The other possibility is that Chapek just put every goddamn thing on hold to wait to see how things are going to go.
Lucasfilm on hold.
That's what I mean. Yeah, to see how Book of Boba Fett and season 3. Is season 3 of Mandalorian even started yet?
They finished production, but that date drops next year.
All right. So they may just be waiting to see how those roll. I don't know. Again, this is just, it's odd that Disney is doing this to so many productions, because they're going to have a big gap at some point here. Because this is what we were talking about last year, remember? And this is why people are like, why don't they just release it? Why don't they just... Well, the reason why is what we said, is when they get to this gap here, they're going to need all these movies for when they're making the new movies, which they're doing now. But Disney, this is a move that made no sense to me in any way, shape, or form, because this means now they're going to hit a point. They're going to hit a rough spot here where they have no movies to release.
That's why they've kicked up animation production.
Well, that makes sense, I guess, but not like they've been burning it up animation-wise either.
Well, that's
Wreck-It Ralph 2 and Frozen 2 both didn't do very well. From my
but they're stepping into not just Walt Disney Animation, but also Pixar.
And Pixar hasn't done shit since when?
It's coming. It's coming. I mean,
Dinosaur movie was the last one that I saw that was even remotely.
It was terrible. Well, okay, so you have it's not you have the Colombian version of Coco coming up.
I haven't seen Coco, and people have said that's good. I'll put the caveat on that one.
Yeah, the film Encanto's on the way. There's several other stuff on its way out there. So
To me, Pixar's dead without Lasseter. It's not the fucking same.
Look, you're not going to get an argument from me. I'm just telling you what their plans are.
I know, I hear you, brother.
And also, speaking of Lucasfilm and stuff, before we get on with the super chats, I also got a whisper from a little bird that there's another possible delay in Lucasfilm, namely the Acolyte. Series from what's her face?
Leslie Headland.
Leslie Headland. Yeah. But this is also something
happen.
that's going to be that'll be delayed until next year, which is code for it's never happening.
I don't think that one's happening. But let's get on to some super chats here, unless somebody else had any more to add to this.
I was just going to say, Steph seems to have predicted both of these events, Acolyte and this.
Well, like I said, it was really funny because Mike, Mexican Iron Man, was looking up on IMDb Pro last night, and none of these productions were listed anywhere on Lucasfilm. And I'm like, well, the Rogue Squadron should be listed there.
The Rogue Squadron's there. I just checked it. It's there.
Okay. All right. So at least it's still there. All right.
Now
he's like, there's nothing else.
Wrong by mistake. It was late.
Oh, yeah. Well, he said there's nothing else lined up there. So, but I know they have a few series and shit that should have been.
Well, I mean, the stuff is on IMDb. Whether or not it's linked properly with the studio, that's up to debate, because sometimes that happens. Like the studio will put it up there and they'll forget to put in their production links.
Well, I don't know what he was looking at. So,
and sometimes they'll alternately like list something before they're ready to reveal it, so that it's out there and all of a sudden it's a surprise. So you'll see some weird stuff. I mean, that's not uncommon.
Well, let's get to some super chats.
They don't have to tie anybody to it for professional reasons.
Because I have no idea how many you guys have left over from before I got here.
No, we're caught up now. So
okay.
Yeah.
So is this where we're at, Mike and Ayers?
That's where we're at.
Sends in $1.99. Thank you. Says, if anything, Eternals was the plot to it. I don't know about that. I haven't seen the film. What do you guys think, those who've seen it? I mean, it as in the Eternals and it, but yeah.
I thought the original was fantastic.
Well, there's similarities for sure, and there's like a space alien that came like shit many years ago. But yeah, but beyond that, I don't see it.
All right. Prof. Gray says, said it before and said it again. Production costs must come down. Well, that's, I think, another reason why some of these delays are happening.
Script. Yeah. How much money do you think they're going to have to cut out of these $200 million production budgets?
90 million minimum.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I mean, if Ann Sarnoff is telling the truth about Dune costing 130 million, that's probably the ceiling on some of these things. You really can't go much more than that, especially once you factor.
You really shouldn't be going much more than that. Yeah.
Once you factor in average, if they can make Dune for 130 million, there's no fucking excuse anymore.
Well, they have again a production budget. Okay, so this lazy filmmakers want the most amount of money in their budget, right? The ones that are amazing, the true value in filmmakers are what they do with that money. So if you give somebody $90 million and say this, make this epic, they're going to do everything they can to figure out how to get the shots that they want. Could they do more with a bigger budget? Sure. But sometimes, the budget actually gives you a better film. It'll give you a better character-driven film. So a better story-driven film.
Well, I don't know if Script agrees with this or not, because he's probably been around a hell of a lot more than I have as far as like anything like that. But like, I feel like they become way too reliant on post-production. Like, they'll fix it in post has become too much of a fucking problem. I can't even remember.
It's been a problem since the 70s.
Well, no. I mean, like, I just saw, I can't remember who it was, but it was on a documentary I was watching the other day, and it was probably either, it was one of the guys who used to work for ILM or Rick Baker or one of those type of guys, because it was a documentary about practical effects, about rubber monsters and shit like that.
Oh, nice.
And they flat out said in the one thing, he was talking about how CGI has ruined the industry because you have made everybody lazy, and I think the word complacent or something like that was the word he used. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I'm sitting there one day and there was an air conditioner duct in a shot. And the camera guy's like, oh, we'll remove it in post. And he goes, so I walked over, and I moved the camera 80 degrees or something like that. And I told the actors to stand here, and I said, there, I just saved you I saved the studio $10,000. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Like that to me is a prime example of where we're at. They need to pay more attention to that. They need to stop and think, okay, how much is this going to cost us as compared if we just did it in some way in camera real quick right now in the shot? Is there something we can do to get around using hundreds of $1,000s or tens of thousands of dollars or expensive CGI and, behind the scenes people? Because I think that's one of the bigger problems here. And I think that's where Dune, I think, surprised a lot of people, is because I'm learning about more and more of it was shot like Lord of the Rings than it was with CGI. I mean, there is a lot of CGI in it, don't get me wrong. But I think there's a lot more miniatures and bigatures in that movie than people realize. And that helps with the production cost. And to me, helps with the atmosphere and make it feel more real. And that's why I think Lord of the Rings stands out as above things like The Hobbit, for instance, is great examples of where using practical more and only using CGI when you fucking have to, aka Lord of the Rings, as opposed to The Hobbit, where it's all over the goddamn place and unnecessary through most of it. So that, I think, is a big thing. But we've also know, I made this point before, is the lawsuit on Deadpool proved that you can't spend less than X amount on these kind of movies regardless. There's no way you can, because otherwise it's just not going to happen. Because they tried to boast, we made Deadpool for, I think it was $80 million they boasted, but then ended up getting sued for, I think, another 40 or 50 million because the artists never got paid and they were working overtime on the CGI, which that movie is not even that CGI heavy. So for me, that tells me that you can't make one of these movies for less than $100 to $150 million. So yeah, that needs to change first and foremost. Sorry, that's such a long thing I just went on there.
So that was a question, right?
Kind of.
I'll put it to you this way. Scarcity is the father of invention. And when you don't have a whole lot of money, you start looking at what's actually important. And that's kind of what you need with regards to film and storytelling in general. Is if you don't have a whole lot of money, you focus on what you can do and what is actually important. And when that is what ends up being shown more prominently on the screen, it resonates more with people. That's the issue that George Lucas had with Star Wars. He's like, yeah, in his mind, and with his original script, there's tons of big set pieces and costumes and aliens and all this other stuff. And when he realized he only had between $8 and $12 million to do all this, he had to, him and all his filmmaker buddies who went through the script were like, you got to cut out what's not superfluous and only use what's important. And that's what he ended up having to do. And he had to do the same thing with Empire Strikes Back and, to a lesser extent, Return of the Jedi. But then when we see, conversely, when he has pretty much all the money in the world, we got the prequel trilogies. And there's a lot in there you can argue didn't need to be there.
Well, and I always bring Jaws up as my prime example.
Jaws is also a great example. They had the money to make the shark, but it didn't work. So they had to focus on what was more important than the shark. And that's the relationships between Brody and his family and, Clinton and all them. And yeah.
No, but that's the main problem. First of all, and I think I've been saying this before the pandemic. So I don't know. What do you think, Andre? Culture?
No, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that Chapek is doing, which is why he's getting so much pushback from agents and everything like that. If they cut down, if they cut the fees, they're going to have to cut out the fees for the agents and the gatekeepers and everything like that as well. And I agree completely. The costs have reached an insane level, and much of that cost isn't actually on the screen.
This is true too. Yeah.
I think it's perfectly okay with cost that is on the screen. That is something that you can defend, although you don't need to put any more than necessary there either. But the big problem is all the things that are just lost in various bureaucracy and various things just disguised as who knows what else when it's really hookers and blow. For a bunch of people across the board, right? So yeah, no, I really think that, for instance, as you said, if a movie right now has a budget of 200 million, it should be 110. Cut it down, find a way, and you have to cut where of the things that aren't visible on the screen. That's one thing that actually struck me with Dune. One of the things that I said in in my review. I don't know that every single dollar is on screen, but it certainly looks like every single dollar is on screen. You have so many examples of movies that cost so comparatively little, and they look so expensive, all things considered. Like, for instance, Dread. That's a movie that cost between 30 and 40 million to make.
Yep.
And it looks like it costs 60 to 75 million easily. But that's because they knew how to turn every single dollar. And they put everything on screen, and you can totally tell.
And that's the other aspect too, because the reason there's so much dependency on compositing and computer generated effects and imaging is because that's expensive, but it can be done with a lot less of a crew.
Depending on what it is, though.
It's people in offices as compared to the expenses of shooting on location. And if you can get more done in the office than on location, you save a lot of production costs in that regard. So you're actually just moving the money that you'd be spending for in-camera effects and things that you wouldn't either need to compensate with post-production, and you're just shifting all the money to post-production, which you can save a whole lot. So if you hire out, say, a couple of post-production studios that have maybe 20 to 40 people working on them each, compared to a cast and crew and location production of a few hundred, you can actually see the arithmetic there that you're saving more money on post by having the movie made more in post than you are in actual practical scheduling. And that's another issue that has to change. And I think there's some producers that are willing to go that route because it's to their benefit. They're like, we can get a better looking film, and it sure will take us a little bit longer to shoot, but we can actually save some money on the post-production side of things, and probably also roll that over into production to make, you know, the movie visually look great, and, you know, save us some turnaround time. Because I think that's what ends up happening, is that whether they are cutting like, you know, partial payments for post-production so that they would have to sue later on, or maybe they're just renting out a whole bunch of compositing and post-production studios. The studios look at it like, yeah, we're saving some money in some regard this way, where I think the opposite is actually true. I think they're end up spending more money as a result.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody in Hollywood needs to go to the Harvey Korman School and learn how to make everything as cheap as possible first. Then you're allowed a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more.
Well, you can start with that part of Roger Corman. Just don't acknowledge the deals he makes, because those are why he never escalated better than what he was.
Yes, again, and that's where I say, yeah, then you give a little bit more over time, but you don't give him that much trust up front. Like Chloe Zhao is a glowing example of, because I said it the other night and people have been coming back to me and saying, yeah, you were right. Like, I called her basically a glorified cinematographer. She's not a fucking director. And that's probably why the movie come across so limp, is because
I would say that she's not that much of a cinematographer.
Not either. Yeah, because this is what she's done so far. She'll take an actor and she'll stick him into real situations. So you're not really doing much. And I get it. You know, coming from some background with like reality TV, yeah, there's some setup. But what she's doing is more documentarian. Like, she's trying to get real reactions out of people by using an actor as a different character, right? Like, that's kind of her gimmick. And I don't see how that translates to the Marvel universe. Like, to me, I'm not sure where they made that jump, right? Like, it doesn't compute to me. And this is a thing that's got to stop. Like, I have no problems with directors, you know, working their way up. We've brought this up many other times, but when you've got somebody like Chloe Zhao, yeah, it's just because she's won an Oscar does not mean she should be directing The Eternals or any other Marvel movie for that matter. It just should not be, until she's done a lot of other stuff to be like, okay, yeah, now she's had enough, you know, other productions where she's made real movies. And I don't mean to like diminutize the movies she's made, but I mean real movies in the sense that it's a script. You have, you know, all the scenes set up and it's conceptualized and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to this, you know, just send them out and do what they do kind of concept that she's done so far with her shooting. Like, I haven't seen her movies, but I know that's the gimmick she does. Like, 3 of her movies she's made so far, that's the gimmick, basically. The only one that's closest is that one she made about the disabled rodeo rider or whatever, but I think he plays himself in the movie anyway, so it's still kind of a, I don't know. Andre, you know more about this than I do, so you put it in your editorial. So
yeah, well, no, basically, in her case, she's good at what she does. What she does isn't giant blockbuster movies like this. This is maybe something that she has in her, although there is nothing in her previous work to suggest that it is. But then again, there was nothing in the Russo brothers' earlier work to suggest that they would be a good fit for massive blockbuster things either. But boy, were they holding out on people in Community. But I don't think that that's kind of like the same thing with Chloe Zhao. I really think that it's outside of her comfort zone and outside of her. Certainly right now, I feel it's beyond her ability to do these kinds of movies because it's so far away from her sensibilities.
Well,
And
yeah.
so
Well, let's
they
define it as a tentpole film and not specifically a superhero film. We're
Yeah, a
talking like a
tentpole
big
film.
budget tentpole film. Yeah, because she's
It's
an
just-
intimate type of filmmaker.
Exactly. She's more close to like intimate, kind of like Werner Herzog. I'm a huge fan of Werner Herzog, but I would not want him in charge of a tentpole movies because that's all wrong for him. His sensibilities aren't compatible with that. And I think that's exactly the same thing with Chloe Zhao. Her sensibilities aren't a fit with tentpoles, and we saw that on very clear display now with the Eternals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing
but-
that she's made makes me sound interested in watching it. So,
Yeah. Well,
No, it's not for everyone. And Trenchman says for Donald, I don't know how to feel about Transformer 7.
be
Well,
worried.
it looks like you know exactly what you feel about it.
wow. Yeah.
You know what you're going to get already. It's just going to be more of the Mark Wahlberg type.
And it's
stuff.
not not going to be as good as Bumblebee because producer
close.
Lorenzo de Bonaventura he had an issue with that. He was very nervous about Bumblebee, which of course was the best movie in the whole franchise, but he didn't like it. So yeah.
But the reason that
Michael Bay
movie didn't play
movie.
well had nothing to do with Bumblebee and everything to do with the last few Transformer movies. That's
exactly.
The problem.
Yeah, but he didn't see it that way.
Yeah, and they're not going to learn that lesson.
Nope.
RRTNZ, or Artens, sends in $5 New Zealand dollars. I don't know if there's a different kind of nomination you guys use there, but I'm just going to say dollars. Hail team, Midnight's Edge. I side with Bob Burnett on this film. Very flawed, but good stuff too. The marketing campaign did it a huge disservice, in my honest opinion.
Well, if you like the movie, then absolutely. Don't let anyone diminish that. If you enjoyed it, that's the only metric you should care about. I don't think the marketing did it any disservice, though. The marketing was actually very fair in showing exactly what kind of movie it was. That's my opinion.
Flat and bland and drab, yeah. But,
yeah, that's what the movie is.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. R&B, I mean, I appreciate his feelings on stuff. I mean, he's very honest when he tells you that you know he gives these kinds of films more forgiving eyes. So, you know, I think that it's at times during the discussion we had the other day that you know he was acknowledging the issues with it, but you know it didn't factor into his opinion overall. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And then Erik Runge Madsen has more news from the set of Rust, where the good news just won't end. They just had a spider bite on the Rust set. Man might lose a limb. Yeah, I saw that too. It was like
from a trumpet spider, like a brown recluse or similar.
Looked like
something like that.
Ooh.
Some of the horrid things that's in the desert right there. So like, as they were packing up after people had been shot and everything like that, everything was like horrible and awful, and they were just shutting things down. And this is another technician, another of the people. I don't know if he's like a union or not. He might have been IATSE, but in either event, he was like a gaffer or some kind of technician under the line, and he got bitten by one of these little nasty buggers, and he got sepsis.
Man, I'm telling you, there are trumpet spiders, different types of spiders out there that can wreck your day, and this kind of stuff happens, man. They have a particular kind of bacteria that eat your flesh. All kinds of stuff goes on with some of these spider bites, so that's no good. That's terrible news.
That's my cat's job.
Yeah, get the spider.
Mm-hmm.
Cats like to eat spiders, so yeah.
The dog's been chasing a fly for a while. She'll get it eventually. Got one fly in the house. It's like, you got one job, dog. Mega Wing Zero says, I think Fantastic Four would be better as a big budget show building up cosmic background of the MCU and have movies for big events in the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, and I agree with him, but the problem is I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but the problem is they didn't have Fantastic Four like 4 years ago.
This is true.
They needed it to do this.
But then again,
I don't
know if I agree with this. I think Fantastic Four should be more ground level. I think that's the problem we have here, and I think that's why Venom played so well, is because we have too many major, big, huge movies like this.
Yeah.
I
think Fantastic Four needs to be a fish out of water story. They have to be from the 60s and transport to current day from their cosmic ray experiment or cosmic.
And I love that idea. I really do. Yeah, I think that's a great take on it. But yeah, you started out as grounded, but then that's how you bring the cosmic stuff into play, right? I think that would have been a great thing. And if it was if
they've got a great villain in Doctor Doom. You don't need a bunch of other shit, right?
Yeah. Yes, but you bring in the Silver Surfer, you bring in all these other characters. It brings in more cosmic elements, I guess. So that's the side I was agreeing with. But my argument with Robert from the other day was that as well. I mean, Phase 4 needed the slow build up we got in Phase 1 because we had 3 acts. We need another 3 acts. Then we need another 3 acts. If you want to make this work, that's the only way to do it. To build characters, you can't just assume people are going to immediately cling to them, especially when you give them 10.
I don't think we need any big, huge events for a while, right?
No.
Like you can build up to something eventually, but I think that's a big problem with the Eternals. Is I think they're trying to make it out to something it really isn't going to be eventually.
Yeah.
Corey sends in $10 and says the MCU ends for me with Far From Home. They had the big battle with Endgame and then the torch pass from Tony to Peter in Far From Home. I may be biased as a major Spider-Man fan, though. Well, hopefully, at least you may enjoy a little bit of the next one coming out here, but we'll see. I don't disagree with your feelings on that because I've been
that's fair. That's very
marveled out for the most part. I didn't even check out most of the series so far, and you
haven't missed out. I mean,
I have no interest.
If they were all struck from canon, then also that would be better.
And then No One a Consequence sends in 5 and says, personally, I thought Punisher was pretty good. It's not Daredevil season 1 good, but it's worth a watch. Now I know that's something that you had a lot of opinions about back in the day when it was out, at least, Andre. But
I think it's okay. I don't think it's everything it could be. I think that the Daredevil season 2, that's where Punisher was, where he was at his best. I just think that they got a little bit lost in the conspiracy theories and taking down government and went a little bit lost in the character has to appeal to law enforcement, to ex-military, which I think is fine. But you have 2 seasons worth, and he's the fully fledged Punisher in the last 5 seconds of the end of season 2.
Because it wasn't your whole thing, because in the original version it's just a random act of violence that kills his family or whatever.
Yes, the only one that actually got it right is Punisher Warzone, incidentally directed by a woman.
There you go. I do enjoy Dolph Lundgren's one, although the Thomas Jane one's okay. I'm just not a fan of him as the character for some reason. It just never did it for me, and I don't mind him as an actor. That's not the problem. It just, to me, John Bernthal, and who was it that played him in Warzone?
Ray Stevenson.
Really, and Dolph Lundgren. Those guys look and feel like the Punisher to me.
In terms of pure looks, Ray Stevenson was actually the best one.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, I agree. So that's my thing, is just with Thomas Jane. It's he's a great actor. He just doesn't evoke the look to me personally. That's all. But he did all right with what he had. But no, I got to still check out those Netflix ones. I just never got around to it. And now it's they don't matter really anyway. So,
no, that's
Stephanie Janisek, yes, called the Jenkins movie wouldn't be made. I knew it. Well, we don't know that for sure yet.
It's looking that way,
delayed,
though.
But yes.
Well, it is looking that way. So yeah, you called it. Absolutely.
As far as it being delayed, I'll give you one of these. How's that sound? I think you've earned it.
I fucking knew it. Oh,
there you go. And I think they fixed the StreamYard things to where it doesn't jump so bad anymore.
Yeah, it appears so, because I've never been able to bring up so many super chats. So maybe
I know it'll scroll now instead of jumping.
Yeah, amazing. Love it. So maybe next we can have like a repository for member chats. That would be nice.
Well, that's YouTube's fault first and foremost. That's not StreamYard's. So on that end, but it would be nice if StreamYards could pop up those member chats at least in the stream part.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
Nikki D says, if the MCU D Plus shows were wildly successful, wouldn't Disney release the viewership numbers like Netflix does at times?
No.
You would think, but at the same time,
if they start showing like, hey, this show was a huge success for us, here are the numbers, then tacitly they know that they will be admitting every single time a series wasn't by them not showing the numbers. So no, even if something is wildly successful, once they have the policy, we don't show the numbers, and they have that policy, they're not going to do it for anything, no matter how successful it is. The only thing you'll notice is like what kind of like momentum that it has and how quickly it gets like a follow-up.
Yeah, and something also script is, and you know, we've discussed before, is until the commercial aspect of this comes into play, and they have a reason to gauge and show the success one way or the other, that's the only time that thing will change. And we're a little ways off from some of that yet. I mean, some of them are already adopting the commercials.
When they can sell to advertisers, that's when they'll have to release the numbers, because that's what's going to allow them to gauge how much the value of what it is to sell an ad spot within the show.
And as much as that sounds like crap because it's taking us back to old TV, there's good reason for that to happen, and it creates incentive for better shows. That's the plus side, because that's where we're at right now. We're kind of in this limbo where everything is content and nothing is better than the thing that's next to it.
There's no real competition to draw viewers as opposed to like the brand recognition. It's not the quality. Like, I mean, that's what I really like when I looked into the history of the airings of Columbo. It's like people would schedule their shows around that hour and a half because they knew they would never be able to compete because those specials were so good. And in order for them to like compete, they said, okay, listen, we got Columbo's airing like, you know, Thursday night. What do we have that can take those viewers? And they had to figure it out. They had to hit the ground, and you got other shows at that point.
Or they just roll over and play some repeat.
Or they just roll over and play some repeat. Exactly. Because it's like, we just can't. And that's kind of what you need at this point, because now it's basically on-demand television. That's what streaming is on-demand television at its purest. There's this mindset with the current people running those things that it doesn't matter anymore, but they're soon going to learn that it does. That they have to start, you know, finding other avenues of revenue that's not directly from just the customer.
Oh, I miss the days when television you actually had to compete for viewers, even when you just had the 3 to 4 main networks. And you're right, because there'd be nights where you know something was on the one network and the rest of the networks are just like, fuck it. Especially if sports or something was on.
Hey, if anyone has any of those archived TV guides from like the late 70s, you just take a look at the scheduling. You can totally tell when, you know, the networks were actually in communication with each other and finding out, oh, this show's being aired at this slot. Well, okay, we'll do a repeat or something of that nature.
Like a movie of the week or something shit like that.
Yeah.
Just because they know there's no way to compete, or like, especially like Super Bowl time. That was when specifically you would see they would just show like really crappy movies and shit up against it because they knew there was nothing to compete. Shadow Dancer, the Red Mage says, when will the MCU have the cojones to show a real Doctor Doom? Good question. Enough
Actually,
of this MCU pansiness.
Shadow Dancer, Secret of Shinobi. I have some potentially very bad news for you.
I was waiting for this.
I have heard some rumors. I do not know if they are accurate, but I have heard some rumors that they are planning to bring in Doctor Doom with the Fantastic Four. Doctor Doom may even be introduced sooner and set up earlier. It may already be in like Wakanda or something like that. And what I have heard is that it's a character that they're either going to race bend or gender bend or both.
I was just going to say it's going to be Victoria Von Doom.
Yeah, the real Doctor Doom, the one that you want, you're probably not going to get.
I was afraid of that. It's going to be Victoria Von Doom, and she's going to have a doctorate in gender studies.
That would be a very dangerous Doctor Doom.
Don't even joke about stuff like that.
I'm not, let him. At this point, like I said last night on Doomcock's show, just fucking let him. Go ahead, cast Brie Larson in a Star Wars movie. Buy us a house. I don't give a shit. At this point,
maybe she'll be Doctor Doom.
That would be fucking hilarious. No, she's Captain Marvel already. So unless they
that's
kind of weird,
but she'll be behind a mask, so you'd never really see her on.
Yeah.
Well,
this whole time it was Captain Marvel.
Well, you can. What's her face playing Rey?
Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, she's not in the MCU. She can be Doctor Doom.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
yeah, but
you wouldn't have to put a mask on her because her face is already a mute.
Yeah, Zendaya's already in it, so she's usually cast in everything. Maybe it'll be Amber Turd. Trenchman says, I'm curious for the upcoming Netflix Ultraman movie. Well, at least you got something to look forward to, hopefully. I haven't heard too much about it, but I know there's some Ultraman fans out there. Is there any on the panel here today? I mean, I know very little about the character.
I've seen a couple things from Ultraman, but I'm not a huge fan. I've never turned it off if I see it on TV. That's the other part. I like watching where it goes, but it's been a long time since I've seen anything Ultraman related.
I have never seen Ultraman, and I know nothing about it.
It's called Ultraman still, so at least that's a plus. It's not Ultra Woman.
Well, wait a minute. See, now this is going to be the change at Netflix, though. It'll still be called Ultraman, but it's actually Ultra Trans.
Who knows?
Are you being serious or are you kidding? I don't know anymore.
That was a joke.
Okay, good.
Because there's a transformation.
Again, don't give them ideas.
Shit. Lord. Ultraman is a series, Andre. I think it's a Japanese series, right?
Yeah, it's like some. Didn't he like fight Godzilla or something?
No, that was similar character.
That was Jet Jaguar or something.
Yes. Yeah. Very similar character though, in a sense, like look wise. But I doubt they're similar in the construct. But yeah, but Ultraman fights monsters and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well,
I'm more familiar with Jet Jaguar. In fact, I used to confuse them quite often. So I forgot that they were two different characters. Wild Man Beyond says, who cared about the Eternals really? It's all about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm with you, Wild Man Beyond, especially after this morning's trailer. It was like Sony going, look.
Well, basically they just pulled their genitals out and said, here we are. Like almost literally in that shot.
Like, look at it. It's all its glory. Just look at it.
Well, it's just it's a callback to that scene, draw them and then make them hard because that's what they did to activate the proton colliders.
You know exactly who he's saying that to. Gozer the Gozerian.
Yep.
The Traveler has come. Choose and perish. And for those who have been wondering where the humor is, if you haven't watched the last few trailers, it's in the last few trailers, trust me. Especially Paul Rudd's got some good moments.
Paul Rudd does have a couple of good ones. I'm an adult. I'm liable.
Did you see the Pterodog one? The clip? That was hilarious. Man, I can't wait for this fucking movie. We just got over 10 days now. Just over 10 days. 11 days. Roughly 10 days. I
watched that trailer after you said it dropped, in stealth. And I have to tell you, it looks great.
And I'm glad to see that they're doing more with that Muncher character because I was like, at first, I'm like, oh no, it's not going to just be another Slimer, is it? And no,
it's different.
They show some different shit. It's going to be interesting. Mecha J says, according to a recent report from Deadline, IMAX enters the living room with enhanced versions of 13 films for Disney Plus called IMAX Enhanced. Well, interesting. I can imagine what some of these are going to be Marvel films, especially ones that we didn't get in 3D. That were supposed to be IMAX versions, like Infinity War and Endgame, for instance. But otherwise, they've done almost all the 3D versions of the Marvel films in the IMAX versions where it expands the screen. That's what they'll be, most of them. And whatever other ones they filmed in IMAX, that's all it is. Which is nice to have. That's cool. But I guess it all depends on what films they are. Outside of the Marvel films, I don't know what other ones that were IMAX. A couple of Star Wars movies, I think.
I guess.
Was John Carter shot in IMAX?
No.
All right. Well, there you
I
go.
don't think so.
I don't know if any. I don't think any of the.
I mean,
Pixar
that was like filmed in 3D, and it wasn't like good, or it was like converted to 3D and not very well at the.
It wasn't horrible. It was all right. In fact, I got to a point there when it came to 3D, I preferred the converted because it was less problems with things going out of alignment. Because like certain movies that were filmed in 3D, I'd get dizzy and shit from. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what movies they are besides the Marvel ones. Because I know the last like half dozen or better Marvel films were shot with IMAX scenes. I don't know what other Disney movies were shot with IMAX scenes. What other Fox movies were, though? I suppose there could be a few Fox movies.
I don't know. Personally, I think it's just like because this basically means that they'll be like switching aspect ratios over the course of the movie. I think that's so ridiculous, to be honest.
Well, yes and no. I hate it when, because here's the thing: is I do have like I said, all the 3D versions except for Endgame and Infinity War of the Marvel films do have the IMAX enhanced versions, whereas the 2D versions don't. So, like, people like Bill Hunt had always told people, like, you know, because a lot of players, if you put in a 3D movie, it will play it on a 2D TV. It'll just play the 2D version of it. And you can watch the IMAX version, basically. And that's where Bill Hunt had told people, like, yeah, if you want the IMAX version, just get the 3D disc and don't watch it in 3D. You know, if you don't want to watch it in 3D. And it has the IMAX scenes. And some of those scenes open, especially Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And I think Doctor Strange had a lot of IMAX scenes, specifically. And Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had quite a few from my recollection. So that one might have even had the IMAX version put on 4K. I can't remember on that one. But that's all it'll be. Other than that, I can't remember what Fox movies. I think some of the X-Men movies might have some IMAX scenes in them, but I can't remember. I can't recall offhand. So we'll have to see. Michael Miller sends in 14 South African Rand, says, Viacom be like, how do we make money? We too dumb.
Yeah, that's ain't that the truth.
That is so true. My God.
These days, for sure.
Banking on South Park, man. Banking on South Park.
And here's the thing. Oh my gosh. Shari Redstone last week came out and she was like, you know, just buying into all this globalist garbage, you know, at the same time, her company's crumbling profit-wise. I'm thinking you were talking exactly the wrong direction, lady. You're killing everything.
They got rid of Giannopoulos.
Yeah.
Is it counting down now before Emma Watts walks?
Yes, I think so.
Oh yeah, isn't she out the door already, or on her way out the door?
She will be by the end of next year, I think.
Yeah.
And it's weird, man. You bring in somebody to rescue stuff, and then you say, "See ya." And look, I mean, you double down. You have a not Star Trek show in Prodigy. I can't wait to hear RMB's complete thoughts on that, and just all this other stuff out there, man. I mean, you have the one great property, and you're driving it into the ground. What are they?
Actually, they got a couple they're driving into the ground. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, Star Trek's toast, man. But I'm just
Star Trek's already toast.
But I mean, what are they going to rely on next year? What comes out next year that saves their bacon?
It's not so much even that they're too dumb. It's just they're not organized at all. This is the thing.
They're disorganized, and whoever they keep putting in charge to type and fix things, they don't give them any teeth so that they can fix things. So basically, if you bring in someone like Emma Watts, it's like, oh, I'm going to fix this, and then she starts going through the studio, and they're all saying, well, you're not really my boss, so I don't have to listen to you, and I got this contract with this person that's ironclad, so I don't have to do what you say. You're kind of put yourself into a really difficult position. What they really need to do.
Explain what happened with Star Trek and Kurtzman and her.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that has to happen is like Shari Redstone and the rest of the board over at Paramount have to basically give that one person and be like, okay, clean house for us, please. And face the financial consequences of some contracts being broken as a result in order to right the ship, because it's probably going to be cheaper for them to pay out those contracts that are broken than it is to watch them just destroy the actual value of the company any further.
Yeah, I mean, and she desperately needs it. But the worst maneuver they could have possibly done is recombine these companies, right? And again, I mean, it was all, you know, underneath the ownership of National Amusements. I mean, I really think this is just so screwed up. It's ridiculous.
It would have worked if they actually had a proper structure to basically streamline everything. What they ended up doing is they mashed it together. just to
I
force it
agree
in.
completely. I mean, on paper, the idea was good. Of course, they should never have been separated in the first place.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it should
That's a
have been
better
done.
argument.
But it was.
They needed an IP manager, is what they fucking needed.
Yes,
they needed somebody
they
to
did.
come
We
in and they
watched
needed
it.
to go, okay, all this shit, this separating of the IPs is fucking dumb. And so they just decided to have somebody tell them that and then say, okay, now what you need to do is reconglomerate all those. Don't put the companies back together, but just set up a separate entity that owns all the Paramount and CBS IPs
and license it out to Paramount and CBS.
Exactly. Thank you, script. That's what they needed to fucking do, and that's what most of these production companies kind of do in certain ways. But anyway,
Well, they do it under their own rights, so that they can further monetize it. Like Secret Hideout, technically with Bad Robot, owns their version of Star Trek. It's just a weird complication.
This is true, and this is why it's possibly likely that if they ever do part ways, a lot of that stuff will go away because they won't have access to it anymore, and we can hope on that.
It's technically not Paramount's. It's technically not CBS's. It's very weird. I mean, this is
they
the
may
first
still
time
have distribution rights on it for years to come, but
oh, absolutely. But like, it's just the first time in the industry for a generation where we know who owns the property, but because of the way they've licensed it out for production and whatnot, they've created another sub entity that only exists for them. So if Secret Hideout and Bad Robot parted ways from Paramount, they may own their own take of Star Trek that they can distribute with Paramount and Viacom CBS approval, but they'll never be able to make their own again unless they have a new contract with that studio.
Yeah. And then the Seaman sends in $5 and says if they cut costs, that's what I think he means. How will they pay for their diversity and inclusion committees? Well, those will have to be one of those things that either has to go or they got to find a way to work within the system, I guess.
That's a real true below the line thing on the spreadsheet. That should be
but that's not anything that'll it's not going to be on their radar right away, but it should go. Hopefully guys like Chapek will get rid of things like that, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, not anytime soon.
Then No One of Consequence sends in another $5. Thank you so much. Says Ex Machina had a budget of $15 million. Amazing film. That's a good point.
It was contained in a house too, so they didn't have a whole lot.
Yeah, in a house in Norway, no less.
And a lot of times, and I don't know the ins and outs of this movie's behind the scenes, so this is not about Ex Machina, so don't somebody go correcting me on this. But a lot of times with some of these independent films, they just happen to have, somebody, especially when it comes to a special effects situation, or like Neil Blomkamp is a great example. Like somebody like Peter Jackson believed in him and gave him some money, right? Like that's kind of how these things work. And even if it's just a little bit, you can see some really great filmmakers do a lot with little, and they get a little extra help on the other side of it. So I'm not saying Ex Machina was made this way, but I'm sure other films have, and that's why I'm saying this is because, you get like a special effects director who believes in somebody and like, I'll help you out. And they do the effects for free pretty much. Right.
Deferred payment contracts are common in independent film. I mean, they're not great, but they're common in independent film.
Practically for free. Shit like
but if the movie makes money
prestige and stuff like that. Yeah.
And it's always usually negotiated with gross on independent films, because if the movie sells and it gets a distribution deal and they make money, then they reap the benefits of that.
Stan Winston was a kind of guy who used to do a lot of that stuff. Like he'd help out, like he had a school and they would do like help out really low budget independent films with special effects and things like that too. I think they're still around. Then there was things like the Dave School and stuff like that too that would do similar things. But anyway, we got one of your fellow Norwegians here, Andre.
Excellent. We have Paradise Plain, who says for 100 Norwegian krona, Boys and Girls, the Lord of the Rings film series had a budget of 281 million. The box office is 2.9 billion. It's good thinking. Indeed it is.
That's about 93 million a film.
Yep. And
And Erik Runge Madsen, he also points out that about Ex Machina, a house in Norway, catering must have cost a fortune. It did indeed, because that house was in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, that was like half the budget right there.
Well, and we'll have to get to, we need to get to some down home filmmaking again. I think that's some of it too. Maybe we'll see a lot of smaller production companies sprout up out of this, and the technology's there now compared to what it used to be. It'll be interesting to see. I know even some of us here in the panel, some of us, whatever, besides script, you know, who obviously works in the industry, but you know, there's projects that are kind of in the works, and you know, Robert Meyer Burnett is way ahead of everybody as far as working on actual things in the industry and stuff like that. But you know, he worked on his own independent film with Tango Shalom and stuff like that while he's been a YouTuber and stuff like that. So things are possible. Things will happen. And Dota, yeah, well, that's what I meant, like in the industry as far as like for Netflix and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's happening, kids. There's things moving along. It'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years here, because I think the whole idea with how things worked with comics is kind of laid the groundwork of how to do this. Movies and television and short films and things like that are a little bit harder to do, but I think technology is there, and we know a lot of people now. There's enough people in the fellowship or whatever you want to call it now that
there's a lot, because basically you need the people that know what they're doing for something like this. And there are more and more people coming into like these circles that
Mr. H has already made his short films and stuff already. And there's some documentaries and stuff being worked on already. I've talked to some people about a few things already, but you know, just some of these things take time, especially documentaries. But anyway, in fact, there's something that Script and I got to talk to somebody about soon here. That reminds me. Weapon 26 sends in $20. Thank you so much. If Marvel wanted money, make Hulk versus Wolverine, where Logan is with Alpha Flight going after a fugitive Hulk. It would be a way to start ushering in the X-Men while having a massive movie. There's so much potential being ignored. I agree with you, Weapon. This is where they should have went. This phase should have been the buddy phase. That what I mean by that is they should have, and I know some people didn't like Thor Ragnarok, but I think that was where they should have went with this. Enough of the teaming up 12 different fucking heroes. We only need one or two main heroes here. And I liked the camaraderie and the buddy team up ideas. Like that I think is a great idea, or even a versus like Hulk versus Wolverine. Great idea. And I'm not so sure what they're going to do with Wolverine yet as far as Disney goes. The way they're doing things with Spider-Man and everything else have me completely thrown for a loop here. But what do you guys think? Do you think that would have been a better idea to go with more of those kind of films, like a Hulk versus Wolverine? I think so anyway. You know, like team up films and versus films, as opposed to these like Eternals type shit.
As long as they don't go too far with it, because then you can easily get into Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein territory really freaking fast.
And not in a great funny way. Yeah.
Exactly. So
No,
I'd rather
understand,
they delay that, or not delay it, but reserve that for something really special. I mean, like the only one that I'd be remotely interested in is exactly Wolverine versus Hulk, because that's kind of like an epic fight that's been going on in the comics and stuff like that. But beyond that, I really don't want to see like any versus stories. I mean, just have that, but don't call it that.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Because a lot of times that's how they meet up in the comics anyway. They always are at odds, and then they end up working together by the end. We get that. But I mean, like, there's some of these characters that already know each other. And instead of doing fucking Winter Soldier and Falcon, why didn't they give us other characters that we'd rather see, right? Like, that work well together. That's what I loved about Ragnarok. I get it. It's not quite Planet Hulk. It's not quite Ragnarok. But damn it, if I didn't love those two characters bouncing off of each other, right? Like, that's what I liked.
But that's again, those are the moments that we need more of, right? I mean, it's one of the reasons Guardians of the Galaxy worked, right?
Exactly.
Because the animosity between the characters. So, you know, you bump up against some of these very popular characters that, even if they haven't been formally introduced into the current Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think you have a recipe for success. That's what I'm saying. Go smaller, create the first act, then build onto that, build a second act, then build your third act, and do it all over again. It should be, the machine's been established, but you broke your storytelling mechanism with stupid stuff like Loki. I'm trying not to curse here. And that, I mean, you're constantly now in a cycle of destruction of the things that you should be preserving, you know, in favor of other stupid elements of storytelling.
Daredevil and Spider-Man are perfect characters for this, right? Like, they're the two characters that you could really do well with teaming up with other people, and they're street level characters.
Yeah, there's no superpowers, you know, aside from, you know, some of the stuff with Spider-Man. You know, between those two, they are fully fleshed out individuals.
Spider-Man on purpose.
And you made fun of me.
I did.
Anyway, but that's the whole point. Is you're 100% right. You could team those guys up with anybody. Those are my favorite comics, man.
Deadpool as well. Yeah.
I mean, we did not get enough of Captain America and the Falcon, right? And yet they wanted to get rid of Captain America in favor of Falcon Cap, and you destroyed opportunities for, we need the buddy cop stuff in the first act, or we need, fully fleshed out new characters. I mean, one of the reasons Morbius might have a decent chance at being okay is because it's adding another, element to the Spider-Verse. So you've got a lot of these these things that should be being done. Why aren't they? And there's a simple answer to it. It's because that's not the purpose of their platform now. It used to be like franchise. Now it's a platform, and that messes everything up.
They'll just keep teaming up people as Captain and Marvel anyway, so fuck it. Luca Rock says, first Fantastic Four villain has to be Mole Man. At least they wouldn't gender swap him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them to cast Melissa McCarthy as Mole Woman.
I was literally just thinking that. I'd be surprisingly okay with that.
It's not the worst idea I've ever come up with. We both thought of it at the same time.
You look good in the sunglasses.
But here's my problem with her. Can an actor get worse?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I think she has.
Absolutely.
I think she has, because I used to be able to stand her. And in fact, I would argue there were some performances she's put out there that were pretty good. And then she became Melissa McCarthy. Like, before she was the Melissa McCarthy, she had a few roles, and then she won that Oscar for fucking, Bridesmaids, or not. She didn't win. She got nominated. Sorry. Right? She didn't win, right?
I don't think she's won.
She didn't win, but she got nominated, I think, for Best Supporting Actress for that, whatever it was. After all that business, and she started starring in all these bigger movies where she was the big star, then she just turned into, like, wannabe Chris Farley. But, like, there's that movie she did with, like, Bill Murray where she's, like, a single mom. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a really good movie, actually. And there's a couple other movies and stuff she's done that I didn't think were that bad before.
Well, when her husband's not writing and directing, she's pretty good. Usually.
So maybe that's the problem. But no, I seriously feel like she's gotten to be a worse actress. So, like, I'm not so sure that'd be a good idea now, Andre.
Oh, I can say. But yeah, no, probably not. But
I wasn't a big fan of the gender swap Dr. Octopus in Into the Spider-Verse either. Even though people were like, I kind of like that. I'm like, especially with the lesbian overtones.
I did not see that coming, I have to say.
I'm sure that's what Aunt May said too when she was down there. But Mega Wing Zero sends in another $10. Thank you so much. You are the wind beneath our mega wings. I agree that Fantastic Four should start ground like Lee and Kirby run, but need to build to Burns run, right?
Yep.
And finish with Hickman's run and conclude the MCU Hickman's Secret Wars. That's just me. Well, they are working in the Secret Wars. We don't know what kind of version it's going to be, obviously. But
it's actually Secret Invasion is
Secret Invasion. That's what it is.
Secret Invasion. Secret Wars is with, I think, the Beyonder and a whole bunch of other.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. It is.
Sorry,
that's what the Beyonder.
Yeah. All right. And then we had, I think, one or two more, maybe. It's so nice that it doesn't jump on you now.
Yeah, it's an amazing improvement.
Duraran sends in €5. Fancy money. Ultratrans Man. Yeah, that's. Let's hope not.
Look, the problem is it just wouldn't surprise me.
Right.
If
we think of J. Edgar Hoover will come and destroy us. Diego Flores sends in 10 Peruvian souls. How you doing, Diego? Don't want to scare anybody, but Bandai is part owner of Surabaya. Am I saying that right? Surabaya, owner of Ultra Series, and with their recent announcement of global market, let me know if you need more. Well, there you go. It sounds like Diego is the go-to on that, and you can find him on Midnight's Edge Espanol, and he will answer questions in English as well, so it doesn't have to just be Spanish. So.
Yeah, Diego, we have to do something on just that on Espanol, where the skills is. Yeah.
Let's see here. Shadow Dancer Red Mage comes in with another 5. It says, "Don't tempt me. I can put Squirrel Girl in Doom armor and make it work." Insert evil cackle here. Yeah. Don't give him any more ideas. Trenchman.
Yeah, because the House of Ideas is completely out of them. So, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't start listening to some, because they will start looking for ideas to piss us off, guys.
No, but here's like the thing, that in the comics, for instance, everything that they've been doing the past 10 years are stuff that was in the What If comics of the 70s.
Yeah, Trenchman
And it was done better then.
Yeah, I highly recommend Ultraman 1966 through Ultraman Jack. Both shows are the epitome of positive male hero, or epitome. Epitome. That's that word. Okay.
Yes.
Positive male hero who kills monsters with energy blasts, but are they coming out of his penis? That's the question. But I do gotta agree with Entertainment Wizard. Guardians 2 might have the best best 3D I've ever seen. Between both the Guardians films and Ant-Man have reference level 3D, especially considering they were converted. Ant-Man is so much fucking fun in 3D. Like that one, I was so glad that they did such a great job with. But anyhow, what else we got here? We got a member comment, don't we? From
Yes,
Big
we
Daddy
do.
MRI. You want to grab that one, Andre? It's in the private chat here.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. And I shall go and grab it. Big Daddy MRI, who's been a member for 2 months on the Viking level, says, "Love Midnight's Edge. Keep on pushing the envelope. Great reporting, great panels. Don't stop and ignore the naysayers." Oh, well, thank you. Well, we won't stop and we will ignore the naysayers. Unless they have some good points, then we may listen and incorporate it. But beyond that, we ignore. Absolutely. But thanks for your support and for being here. And that goes to absolutely everyone listening. We couldn't do what we do without you. So, yeah, thanks for being here.
He may be referring to people who like to steal other people's streams.
Tom, I believe that you also got the question sent directly to you.
Did I? Let me see. Trying to change the subject so I don't say that, huh? Let's see here. Where is it at? I got so much stuff on this thing here today. Oh, here it is. I think. Was it a PayPal thing? Let me bring it up on the thing because
no, you put it in the private chat.
Yeah, duh. No, my bad. Yeah, a listener who asked a question for Script wants to know why America doesn't keep track of international views for their TV shows. I've wondered that for years. Sorry, I can't pay for the comment. There you go. I shouldn't have read that last part, but there.
No, that question's all right. That's a good question. Well, primarily it has to do with the fact that the companies are only hired to monitor the U.S. rating systems. Also, when you do population comparison between the United States and some of the other countries that they have sold their shows to, population for the U.S. is far greater to a degree, to some extent. But primarily, it's really that once they sell the show internationally to another market, it doesn't matter to them the ratings anymore. It just matters the value of what they can sell it for. So they will let those countries that have purchased the rights to show that program or that movie in that country do the work of the ratings to determine its value, and then that number gets communicated back to the owner of the property, and then that's how they negotiate for follow-up. So, for instance, you have something like Supernatural from the CW that was sold overseas. It was a very popular show in the United States and Canada. They sold it cheap for its first season, but it blew up overseas because they liked it as well, and so those numbers facilitated the increased value of selling future seasons to them overseas. And that's kind of how it works. And I'm just kind of broadly addressing it. There's a lot more details to that, but basically that's what it is. The local markets are the ones that monitor the ratings, and that's just how it's going to be. They're never going to spend money to go see how well a show is doing overseas. They're just going to sell the show over there and let that country tell them how it's doing. Because basically they learn how well it's doing if they want to buy more of it. So that's just the way it is.
There you go.
Hope that answers your question.
Yes, I hope that it does, Tom. There you Let's see here. We have Hyperguyver 2 next. Says, hey, have you missed us? That, of course, is the line from the latest trailer of Ghostbusters Afterlife. Hyperguyver's evidently a little hyped about that, as am I. Let's see here. What else we got? Are we all caught up, Andre, or do we have some more that came in? Oh, we got one here. Mega Wing Zero coming with another one. Says, if they change Doctor Doom, they will kill any and all chance for the Fantastic Four being successful. Reed and Doom's rivalry and never-ending battle works. Oh yeah, that's one aspect that they've just had a hard time for some reason getting right in all the incarnations we've had so far outside of
the Roger Corman one.
Yeah, pretty much the Corman one. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I agree with this, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to dispute from that. It's the way it is. I would like, if I was doing Fantastic Four, I would hold off on Doctor Doom until I got like a third Fantastic Four. I'd do Mole Man first, then the Skrulls, and then finish it off with Doctor Doom, because that's the character that you really want to see collide with the Fantastic Four for like your third act, if you're going to do a trilogy of those.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I mean, Reed's ultimate face-to-face with his former friend is always the culmination of that storyline.
Well, and Dr. Doom's a great villain, yeah.
The thing is that you have to do Dr. Doom as a build, because the biggest mistake that, I don't know why producers do this. I do know why. It's because they're lazy, but they bring in Dr. Doom first because they really want to hit it out with a bang.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them for that, but it's like, listen, if you can do that with a couple other Fantastic Four adversaries as well, so you don't need to rely on Doom. Doom should be your closer, really. Like, that's your headliner.
And there's crossover adversaries too, from other comics properties.
Yes, so, I mean, there's lots of Marvel villains that all have fought variations, different superheroes. So
yeah.
Well, and the other great thing about Doom is he can loom over not just the Fantastic Four, right? And he's a more ground level character, where we're not having all this constant fucking.
Well, he pulled a lot of strings, right? I mean, all along the way. So I mean,
he's got diplomatic immunity, for fuck's sake.
He's royalty.
He's constantly pulling strings in the background and putting other problems in front of the Fantastic Four. So I just, that's how you do that character. Again, all of these this isn't a new playbook. I mean, they did it perfectly in the first three phases up until the end. So stop screwing it up, please. Goodness.
Pew Pirate sends in $10. Culture. I was randomly gifted a sub last night from you on Geeks and Gamers Twitch channel. As a sign of appreciation, I'll ask you to brush up on your best Annie Lennox for next karaoke freaks. Right. Thanks, buddy. You gonna be doing Sweet Dreams or
Money Can't Buy It?
Nah, Missionary Man. You guys will love it. Don't mess with the missionary man.
Big Daddy MRI sends in a soup sticker. I wish they would have fixed this so we could see what the super stickers are.
Yeah, but I can see that behind the scenes there for $19.99. So thank you so much for the support.
You are amazing pair.
Yeah.
There are some great amazing pairs out there.
Looks like two of them, to be on my side. It looks like back-to-back amazing pairs.
Did we get two amazing pairs?
It looks like it.
I only see the one, but thank you for that. Big Daddy MRI sends in another $19.99, but this time has a comment or question. Okay, two questions, two of them. Top Gun Maverick is still slated for release in November, and is there any information on third Tron movie in production or on hold? As far as I know, Maverick was moved to next year.
Yeah, it was. I think it was
Maverick's early next year, right?
Yep.
So if you're expecting that movie in November, you're in for something of a disappointment.
Yeah, and in fact they moved their slate back.
They moved it in place of the next Mission Impossible instead, since that's not going to be ready.
Yeah, that got moved too. And the third Tron film, I hadn't heard anything beyond the production board.
It's on Disney, so I don't think it's going to be.
With things the way they are right now, I would not count on it.
I would not hold my breath for it. And I'm a fan of Tron, and I would love more Tron, but I would not hold my breath.
What I've checked into, because people keep asking about this, the movement has been, they announced a third movie. Daft Punk's production company was supposed to be the one producing it, but after they broke up, I have no idea if that's still a thing or not. But then they announced Jared Leto was producing and starring in it. So last I knew, that's where it was sitting, was Jared Leto is supposed to be making one, and that was last year, early or late year before, somewhere in there.
It's pinned on a wall somewhere, man.
I wouldn't get my hopes up on it.
I would not hold my breath. I don't anticipate them reviving the Tron franchise anytime soon.
Honestly, I wouldn't be more surprised if this version gets scrapped and they decide to do something more like Disney Plus series. That wouldn't surprise me.
They could do it in animation again.
Well, I just say, because like the knowing them, that's where they're at right now. Just it makes more sense.
When they keep again, this is they're expanding all of these different elements, and that's why they're taking more space in Florida. There's some stuff that hasn't been announced yet that is taking shape with them as well, and most everything is headed to Florida. They're getting a lot of stuff out of Cali, just FYI. So those of you in
it might still happen. I mean, I haven't heard it's not. So
yeah. I thought it was still stuck in pre, but anyway.
And Top Gun 2 comes out on May 27th. For those who are curious, by the way.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we're all caught up on the super chats on, right?
We are indeed. But I saw a question here for us that has been repeated a number of times. Let's see if I can find it again.
This one?
Yeah, that's one. Brian Barth wondered, do you wish that they still made films like they did in the 70s?
Depends on what you mean.
Exactly. What do you mean? What kind of like movies do I wish that they made in the 70s? Because my answer to that is going to be yes and no at the same time, because they made a great difference of movies in the 70s. Now, what I found is that many of the movies from the 70s they kind of like went from scene to scene, but they very frequently had like somewhat lacking character development, something of like a lacking narrative of like pushing the story along from scene to scene, quite a lot of them. I don't miss that, not in the slightest. I do miss how many of the movies from the 70s could be more raw. They didn't hold any or pull any punches. So I do miss that aspect. But beyond that, I don't have like any particular affection for the movies of the 70s. So on the whole, no, I wish that they still made films like they did in the 2010s or the 2000s.
I would go more with films were perfected more in the 80s. The 70s were a transition period.
Yeah.
You were going from the old studio system way of making movies to the new independent style mixed with things like The Godfather and The Exorcist kicking off the 70s. And that was like a completely different movie than anybody had seen before. And they're just like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And things like Rosemary's Baby. And of course, what really started a lot of this was Easy Rider. But I think Andre's right. Like they were still meandering a bit and trying to figure out how to do it. In the 80s kind of perfected it. But as far as the analog nature of the 70s and the film stocks and certain things like that, yeah, I'd wish they'd go back on that sense. But sound technology, certain other technologies have come way too far to go back to that. And as far as like storytelling,
between 73 and 86 was a really golden age of film.
Or even 88, 89, I'd bring it up to. I actually go to 94 is when things kind of change, because 94 is that cutoff date from when you have basically the Rodriguez Tarantino era.
And I miss Disney taking chances, which was the late 70s, early 80s, where they made things like Something Wicked This Way Comes, which I believe was early 80s.
The Black Hole.
The Black Hole was incredible.
Well, Jaws, my favorite movie, comes from the 70s.
Yeah, it's like I look at that period of time and I go, you took some chances. You did some amazing. I mean, hell, even Tron. Believe it or not, guys, Tron was a huge gamble, and it didn't pay off. The first Tron film did not pay off financially initially. It had broken ground on so much new tech, and way of making film. It was interesting. So, but that was.
I would also like to add something, because I saw in the comments here, people remind me, I was only thinking in American standards, but the Europeans made some freaking great movies in the 70s.
And influenced a lot of stuff,
Yeah, there's some great European movies. Hell, you even have some great Scandinavian movies from the 70s.
Then again, there's a lot of Italian movies where you're just like, did they ever watch a movie before they made this? Like,
well, there's something of a mixed bag, but like some of those movies are amazing.
But even those ones are fucking awesome just because of how batshit crazy they can be, right? Like I love classic cinema.
The more exploitive European movies.
But you can't do the same thing again. You could try, but it's never going to feel.
Try, but you'll fail.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, but as far as like aesthetic wise, I don't know if you could ever really go back to that. I'd love to see more bigger films shot with like, 70 millimeter or something like that. But like, outside of that, no. I mean, I do love a lot of those films. I just don't think you could ever do it again. So yeah, was there anything else we needed to cover, Andre? I don't know what you guys did.
If you check in Messenger, I sent you some pictures.
Oh, that's right.
Or at least one picture that we could bring up here.
Is this from Douglas?
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, Mr. Nailson on Twitter, who has been sending us some amazing art recently.
That's not right. Your boobs are not that big.
Well, this then is Daisy Ridley as Victoria from Doom, since we were talking about
that. Looks a lot like KK, if you ask me.
It does.
Well,
which only goes to, but I see it. But that's also why you could see what Kathleen Kennedy would hire Daisy Ridley in the first place.
Yeah.
Why she could see herself so much in her.
Same thing with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She sees her quirky side in her, I bet.
Exactly.
Self-insert.
Self-insert indeed. Self-insert indeed. With that, was there anything else to cover? I think otherwise, I think we can wrap this up. And
I think we can so too.
Let's see what's going on out there, so we can maybe direct some people. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, there's toxic femininity.
There is that tonight. Yes.
So everyone should join that.
Nick Ricada's live right now, or you can head on over to.
Oh yeah. By the way, major revelations in that trial.
If you want to get into that. Oh my God, he's got a ton of people watching right now.
Yeah, just an hour ago, the backbreaker for the prosecution's argument occurred. So a little over an hour ago in that stream.
I just imagined the reeing that's going to come from that. And I look forward to the lawsuits of the entirety of mainstream media afterwards.
Yeah. And you have 4 popular lawyers on YouTube that are covering this on his channel right now. 26,000 people watching at the moment. So,
oh wow!
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, that's some views right there. Well, yeah, go and get informed on that, and look forward to the fallout when
looks like Unsafe Space is also streaming right now if you want some alternatives. There you go. How about some friends, of course. And with that, I think we're going to wrap this up.
We also have to say thank you to Script and to Culture Casino for joining us.
Check out their channels.
Check out their channels. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can always find me every Tuesday on Culture Casino, and I hop in other times as well, but mainly Tuesday.
And maybe this guy.
And we're trying to get the script in when we can, and we try to get Andre in when we can as well.
Oh yeah, always try when possible.
And that might be definitely a possibility in the new year for sure. But I definitely want to try and get on Culture streams more often.
Yes,
and I appreciate it. I do.
Do you have anything coming up, Script or Culture, you guys want to plug real quick before we head out?
I'm gonna do my own version video of the aftermath of the Eternals first weekend, and of course and then I've got an unboxing video later this week. Just the normal. The 6-minute daily is the thing that I have the most fun with every morning. So when you guys show up for that before you show up over here, I truly appreciate it. You get your pop culture and entertainment news in 6 minutes. I did 17 stories in 6 minutes today, guys. It was a zoo. So,
nice. Speaking of unboxing, we are going to, and I'm going to pin Andre down and make him pick some times here so we can get a schedule for members stuff.
Yes, exactly. We could try for tomorrow, I guess.
If you want to try something that soon, we could. We could maybe come up with
Thursday.
a good time for the international crowd. Perhaps people can throw some suggestions in the comments, and we'll try and decide and throw an announcement up on Twitter in the community tab or something like that this evening. Yeah, I think we can. Maybe I can even announce it on Toxic Femme tonight. So yeah, we can maybe work something like that out. But I think we need to work out a regular schedule. And plus, when I get all this stuff we've gotten sent together, we're going to do some kind of presentation / I mean, a lot of it's been unboxed already, but so I want to make sure people weren't sending me severed heads and shit. Yeah, so like we got a few things we got some from the fans out there, so we'll definitely get to those. I know some of it's way overdue, so I apologize for that. And with that, there is precipitation incoming. That is correct. And it is in the form of koalas being rained on.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koala, koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given.
The McGregor comes in at the last minute with a super chat. Says, thanks for the show, gents. No need to read, but we did it anyway. Thank you so much, the McGregor. We appreciate it. And thank you all. Take care of yourselves and each other.